Story 1. Mill secretly spiked my drink at my wedding. I fainted. The reception was ruined, and now she's trying to buy my forgiveness with $5,000 because my hubby made his decision. Hi everyone. I'm Rachel, 27F, and I just got married a week ago to my lovely husband, Jaden, 32M. The wedding was straight out of a telenovela. It all started 2 years ago at a local coffee shop. I was a regular there, needing my morning caffeine fix to wake myself up for work. One day, this tall guy with kind eyes stood in line right behind me. He seemed nice, but honestly, I wasn't really paying attention. All I could think about was getting my hands on a latte. Later that week, I bumped into him again. This time, we ended up chatting while waiting for our coffees. We talked about all sorts of things. Our favorite books, weird childhood experiences, even our love for that cozy coffee shop. We ended up laughing a lot, and for the first time that day, I felt truly awake. Looking back, I realized I was a bit quick to judge at first, maybe because I was so focused on my own routine, or maybe because Jaden wasn't exactly the type of guy I typically went for. But that day, something shifted. There was this genuine kindness about him, a warmth in his smile that I couldn't ignore. We exchanged numbers, and that very night, Jaden texted me asking if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. We ended up going to this tiny Italian place tucked away on a side street. The food was amazing, but the best part was the conversation. We talked for hours and it felt effortless. We learned that we had a surprising amount in common. A love for old movies, a secret passion for karaoke, although neither of us is very good, and tacos. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more and more. We went on hikes, explored museums, and even tried and failed to take a pottery class together. The more time I spent with Jaden, the more I realized how special he was. He was funny, intelligent, supportive, and always knew how to make me smile. He challenged me to be a better person, and he made me feel like I could be myself completely around him. Then, on our second anniversary, Jaden surprised me with the most incredible proposal. We were on a weekend getaway to a charming cabin in the mountains. It was snowing softly outside, and we were cuddled up by the fireplace when Jaden got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. I don't even remember what he said exactly, because all I could focus on was the love shining in his eyes. Of course, I said yes. Right from the moment we got back from our cabin trip, I started planning my wedding with so much excitement. But this is where things took an unexpected turn. After Jaden and I got engaged, I met his mom, Maria, who's 57, for the very first time. She lived a bit out of town and hadn't had the chance to meet me until then. Initially, Maria was so sweet to me. She talked a lot about how she was excited to finally have a daughter-in-law. Jaden was her only child, and she mentioned that she had always wanted more children. So having me join the family seemed like a big deal to her, almost like gaining another child. She even hugged me warmly and said she couldn't wait to get to know me better. However, things started to change quite quickly that weekend. She came to stay with us to help with some wedding planning and to spend more time together. I was so happy at first, thinking we'd bond and become close. But as the weekend went on, her attitude began to shift in a way that made me uncomfortable. The first passive-aggressive comment came during breakfast on Saturday morning. I had made a batch of my favorite pancakes, and while Jaden was having a coffee in the backyard, Maria looked at me and said, with a smile, "Oh, I guess you don't worry too much about carbs, huh?" I laughed it off at the time, thinking she was just making an offhand comment, but it stung a little. Later that day, while we were looking through some wedding dress magazines, Maria pointed at a model and said, "This dress is so beautiful, but it's designed for someone with a very specific figure. Not everyone can pull it off." She glanced at me as she said it. It felt like a subtle hint that she didn't think I could wear something like that. I just nodded and tried to brush it off, but I couldn't help feeling self-conscious. The comments kept coming. When we were out shopping for some decorations, she casually mentioned, "You know, my friend's daughter lost 20 pounds for her wedding. She looked so stunning. Have you thought about doing something like that?" I was shocked and didn't really know how to respond. I just mumbled something about being happy with my body as it is, but it made me feel like she was judging me for not trying to lose weight for the wedding. The next morning, she was looking through my kitchen cupboards and said, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks here. I try to keep my house a bit more on the healthy side." You don't want to end up gaining weight before the wedding, do you? It was hard to believe she was still on about my weight, and it was starting to really hurt my feelings. I felt like she was picking on me, even though she always had a smile on her face and spoke in a seemingly kind tone. The weird thing was that Maria never made those comments in front of Jaden. It was like she had a switch that she turned on and off when Jaden was around. When he was around, she was all smiles and sweet words, but the moment he stepped out or was in another room, she'd make those passive-aggressive remarks. I felt like I was living in two different worlds. One where I was accepted and loved, and another where I was constantly judged and criticized. At first, I didn't think I should bring up this issue with Jaden. I mean, it's his mom, and I didn't want to create any tension between us, especially since we had just gotten engaged and were in such a happy place. I kept telling myself that it was just a small inconvenience and that I could handle it. Plus, I'm not exactly a thin girl and I have curves. I love my body, and I'm confident in it, which is something I've worked really hard to achieve. Maria's comments were more of a nuisance than anything else. I felt like she was trying to poke holes in my confidence, but I wasn't going to let her get to me. However, Maria started to visit us more and more. It felt like every weekend she was around, which was starting to drive me a bit crazy. I was working from Monday to Friday, and I only had the weekends to plan my wedding. Every time I turned around, Maria was there, offering help or just hanging around. It was hard to focus on wedding stuff when she was constantly present, making her little comments and acting like she knew better than I did. One weekend, she called me and said she'd be coming over again. I felt a knot in my stomach because I really needed some time to myself to plan things without her input. So I told her that I was going to be busy and wouldn't be at home. She asked me what I was up to, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out that I was going to look at wedding dresses. I guess I just wanted her to know that I had important things to do. To my surprise, she got really excited and said she'd love to come along. I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude, so I reluctantly agreed. The next thing I knew, she was at my door with a big smile, talking about how thrilled she was to help me find the perfect dress. I tried to smile back, but inside I was dreading how this shopping trip was going to go. We went to a few bridal shops, and from the moment we walked in, Maria was in full mom mode, suggesting dresses that I didn't like and making comments about how certain styles wouldn't suit my body shape. It was exhausting. I felt like I couldn't even breathe without her judging me. When I tried on a dress that I really liked, she said, "It's nice, but don't you think it's a bit tight around the waist? Maybe something more flowy would look better on you." I was so disappointed because I loved that dress, but her words made me second-guess myself. By the end of the day, I hadn't found a dress, and I was feeling pretty down. Maria went back to her home, and I finally had some peace. For the next few days, she kept hounding me about when I was going to look for dresses again, through texts. I just kept telling her that I didn't know yet when I would have the time. I knew that this time I wasn't going to tell her about when I was going to go shopping, but my plans kind of failed when Jaden told his mom that I was going dress shopping the next day, so she called me and asked at what time she should come to my place. Now I had a decision to make. Maria had already made so many comments about my body that I dreaded the idea of her coming along. I knew that if I took her with me to the bridal shop, she would spoil the day with more comments and judgments, so I decided to come up with an excuse. I told her that the bridal shop had a rule where I could only bring 2 people with me and that my mom and maid of honor were already on their way. Now I know this was a very stupid lie, but at the moment I couldn't think of anything else. Maria immediately pointed out how ridiculous my excuse was and said, "What kind of bridal shop only allows 2 people? That's just silly." I scrambled for words and said, "I know it's weird, but that's what they told me." I was sweating bullets because I knew how transparent my lie was. I quickly told her that I had to leave and cut the call before she could ask any more questions. As soon as I hung up, I felt a huge wave of guilt. I hated lying, especially to Jaden's mom, but I just couldn't handle another day of her making me feel bad about myself. I decided to focus on the positive and remind myself that today was supposed to be fun and exciting. My mom and maid of honor picked me up, and we headed to the bridal shop. I tried to shake off the lingering guilt and just enjoy the experience, and I was able to find a dress that I absolutely loved. After that, Maria didn't call me or text me or even visit our house. She still talked to Jaden, which was a bit of a relief because it meant that there wasn't any awkwardness between them. I sent her a picture of me in the wedding dress, hoping to share some of my excitement with her. She just reacted to the image with a thumbs-up emoji and didn't send anything else. I wasn't sure how to take that, but I decided not to dwell on it. I had so much to do with the wedding coming up that I didn't have time to worry about her. As my wedding day got closer, I got busier with all the preparations and honestly didn't text Maria again. There was a lot to coordinate. Finalizing the guest list, confirming the caterers, and making sure all the decorations were perfect. Finally, the big day arrived. It was everything I had imagined and more. The ceremony was beautiful, and I couldn't stop smiling as I walked down the aisle towards Jaden. The look on his face when he saw me in my dress was priceless, and it made all the stress of planning worth it. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and just like that, we were married. The reception started off wonderfully. We had a gorgeous venue, and the weather was perfect. The food was delicious, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. I loved our first dance. Jaden and I had taken a few dance lessons, and we managed not to step on each other's toes. Felt like a fairy tale, and I was on cloud 9. Everything was going smoothly until I decided to get a drink. I walked over to the bar to grab something refreshing, and Maria was standing right there. She turned to me with a big smile and said, "You look like you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink. Just relax and enjoy yourself." I was a bit surprised by her sudden enthusiasm but thought maybe she was trying to make up for all the awkwardness. She handed me a Shirley Temple, and I thanked her and took a sip. A few minutes later, I started feeling drowsy, but I thought that this was just because I was tired. But then I fainted on the floor and lost consciousness. Everything went black, and the next thing I knew, Jaden was panicking and calling for an ambulance. I could hear the worry in his voice as he tried to keep me awake. People were gathering around, but it was all a blur. When the EMTs arrived, they quickly brought me back to consciousness and started asking questions about what I had eaten and drunk that day. I told them everything, including the meal I had at the reception and the Shirley Temple that Maria had given me. They were concerned and asked if there was anything unusual or if I had taken any medication. That's when Maria, looking a bit guilty, came forward and admitted that the drink she gave me had alcohol in it. She said she didn't think it would be a big deal and that she thought it would help me relax. I was shocked. Why would she add alcohol to my drink without telling me? Things got even more complicated when my maid of honor, Emily, spoke up. She told the EMTs that I had taken an anxiety medication just a few minutes before walking down the aisle. I had been so nervous about everything going smoothly that I took a small dose to calm my nerves. It turned out that the combination of the medication and the alcohol was what caused me to collapse. There must have been some chemical reaction that knocked me out. The EMTs explained that mixing alcohol with certain medications can be very dangerous and that I was lucky it wasn't more serious. Once the EMTs left, Jaden turned to Maria and told her to get out. His voice was trembling with anger, and Maria looked stunned. She tried explaining, saying she didn't mean any harm and that it was just a misunderstanding, but Jaden wasn't willing to listen to anything. He yelled at her to leave the reception right now. I had never seen him so upset, and it broke my heart to see him so angry with his mother on what should have been a happy day. With all the commotion, I wasn't feeling well, and the whole mood of the reception just plummeted. Guests were uncomfortable, and the joyful atmosphere we had worked so hard to create just evaporated. People started leaving one by one, and before we knew it, the reception shut down early. It was heartbreaking to see everyone leave so soon, and I felt like the day I had dreamed of for so long had been shattered. Jaden and I went back to our hotel room, and I was trying to process everything that had happened. I felt numb and exhausted, and the sadness hit me like a wave. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but instead, it had turned into a disaster because of a stupid prank. I couldn't believe that Maria's thoughtlessness had ruined our special day. Maria kept texting and calling both me and Jaden, but neither of us responded. We just needed some time to process everything and figure out what to do next. I could see Jaden was really torn up about it. He loved his mom, but he was also incredibly hurt and angry by what she had done. It was a difficult situation, and I didn't know how to fix it. When we finally went back home, I tried to put the whole incident behind me and focus on our new life together, but it was hard. Every time I thought about our wedding day, I felt a pang of sadness. I kept replaying the events in my head, wondering how things could have been different if Maria hadn't pulled that prank. It felt like a dark cloud hanging over what should have been a beautiful memory. Thankfully, we soon left for our honeymoon, and it was such a relief to get away from all the drama and stress. Jaden and I had an amazing time exploring new places and creating beautiful memories together. It was the perfect escape, and for those 2 weeks, I felt like everything was back to normal. We laughed, relaxed, and enjoyed each other's company without a care in the world. But when we came back, reality hit us hard. As soon as we pulled into our driveway, there was Maria waiting for us at the door. My heart sank, and I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I knew this confrontation was coming, but I wasn't ready for it to happen the moment we got back. The worst part was that she didn't apologize. Instead, she kept saying that it wasn't her fault and that she only meant it as a prank. She stood there trying to justify her actions, saying things like, "I didn't think it would hurt you," and "I just wanted to lighten the mood." It was infuriating to see her refuse to take responsibility for what she did. I couldn't believe that she was trying to downplay the whole incident as if it were just a harmless joke. Jaden couldn't take it anymore. He lost it and told her that this was it. He said that she had crossed a line and she needed to own up to it. The only way he was ever going to talk to her again was if she apologized to me. He told her that she had hurt me deeply, and it was not okay. Maria tried to interrupt, but he wasn't having it. He went on to say that from now on, the only time they would be meeting was during holidays. No more dropping in at random weekends. No unnecessary calls. He said it would be like they were distant relatives who only meet on special occasions. Maria was shocked and started to cry, but Jaden stood firm. I could see how much it hurt him to have to put his foot down with his own mother, but he was determined to stand by me and make sure that I felt safe and respected. Yesterday, while I was at the office, I got a call from Maria. I was really surprised because we hadn't spoken in a while, and I wasn't expecting her to reach out, especially not during work hours. She told me she was outside my office and wanted to meet. I was taken aback and definitely didn't want her coming inside and causing any unnecessary drama. So I decided to go meet her outside to avoid any scenes. We sat down in a little cafe across the street, and I could see that she looked really upset. As soon as we started talking, she broke down crying. It was so awkward because people around us started staring. She told me that she couldn't believe what Jaden was doing. He wasn't picking up her calls or responding to her messages. She was really distraught and begged me to talk to him on her behalf, saying that she just wanted things to go back to how they were before. I want to remind you guys that up to this point, Maria had still not apologized to me for what happened at the wedding. It was like she was in complete denial about the impact of her actions. I told her that instead of coming to my office and making a scene, she should be thinking about how her actions had affected me and Jaden. I explained that she ruined my wedding day, and it wasn't fair to expect me to just brush that aside and talk to Jaden for her. She tried to defend herself, saying she didn't mean any harm and that she was sorry I had a reaction like that. It was like she couldn't see past her own perspective and understand that her actions had real consequences. She kept insisting that if she had known what would happen, she would have never done anything like that. As she continued to cry, people in the cafe started looking at us with concern. I was feeling really uncomfortable and just wanted to get out of there. I told her that I'd see what I could do, but I made no promises. I still haven't talked to Jaden, as I am not sure if I'm ready to forgive Maria. I mean, she didn't even apologize until I reminded her to do that. My mom told me to let it go and forgive my mother-in-law, but I am not so sure. What do you guys think? I would appreciate suggestions. Update 1. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for your comments and suggestions. It means a lot to have a place to share my story and get support. I was really tired of Maria's constant texts and calls, and it was starting to wear me down. So I decided that it was time to have another talk with Jaden and figure out a way to move forward. I told Jaden that Maria had come to my office and apologized to me. It was a bit of a stretch because, in reality, her apology wasn't exactly what I needed, but I felt like it was time to try and mend things, even if just a little bit. I told him that I had forgiven her, which was mostly true because I wanted to put this whole mess behind us and focus on our future. Jaden looked at me with concern and asked if I was sure. I told him yes, I was ready to move on, but we needed to set some boundaries with his mom to prevent any more drama. He seemed to believe that I was willing to forgive her, but he also knew that this wasn't just about me. It was about us as a couple and our need for peace and stability. After our talk, Jaden texted Maria, letting her know that he was glad she had apologized to me and that we were ready to try to move forward. But he also made it clear that he still stood firm on what he had said before. No more dropping by our place unannounced, no more constant calls, and no more overstepping boundaries. He told her that we needed some space to focus on our own lives. Maria responded almost immediately, saying that she was sorry for everything and that she just wanted to be a part of our lives. She promised to respect our boundaries and to give us the space we needed. I still have mixed feelings about the whole situation. On one hand, I am glad that Maria seemed to be taking our boundaries seriously, but on the other hand, I still feel a bit uneasy because I know that one slip-up could bring all the drama back. I am trying to focus on the positive and remind myself that we are making progress, even if it is slow. Also, some of you guys have asked about my anxiety issues. I just want to say that I don't feel comfortable talking about this in detail, but I appreciate your concern. My anxiety was because I was unsure about Jaden or our relationship. I knew he was the one for me from the moment we got serious. It was more about the wedding day itself and all the stress that comes with planning such a big event. We had over 200 guests coming, and I wanted everything to be perfect for them. I was so worried that something would go wrong, like the food not being good, the music not being fun, or the decorations not turning out the way I envisioned. I kept thinking about all the little things that could ruin the day, and it made me really anxious. I wanted our guests to have the time of their lives and to remember our wedding as a beautiful and joyous celebration. Update 2. Hi guys. So something unexpected happened, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. Everything was going smoothly until last weekend when Jaden got a call from Maria inviting us both to dinner at her place. She said it was important for us to have this dinner to start getting things back to normal after everything that had happened. Jaden told me about the invitation and asked what I wanted to do. I told him it would be fine and that we should go. Maybe it was her way of trying to make amends. When we arrived at Maria's house, she welcomed us with a warm smile. However, after we finished eating, Maria surprised me with something that left me completely puzzled. She got up and came back with a check for $5,000. She handed it to me, saying she was really sorry for ruining my wedding day and that while she couldn't undo the past, she wanted to give me this money as a way to make up for it. I was totally taken aback and immediately felt uncomfortable. It was such an unexpected gesture, and I didn't know how to react. I refused the money right away and told her that I didn't need it and that we should just let bygones be bygones. Jaden agreed and told her that she didn't need to give us any money, but Maria was insistent. She wouldn't take the check back and ended up putting it in my coat pocket forcefully. I was so surprised and didn't know what to do. She seemed desperate for us to accept it, which made the whole situation even more awkward. Soon after that, we left her house and came back home. On the way back, Jaden and I talked about what had happened, and we both felt a bit confused. Why would Maria give us such a large amount of money? It felt strange and made me wonder what her intentions were. Was she really sorry, or was this her way of trying to buy our forgiveness? I'm not sure, and it's left me feeling really unsettled. Jaden and I talked about it again, and we're still not sure what to do. He's as confused as I am, and we both want to handle this situation in a way that's fair and respectful. We don't want to hurt Maria's feelings or reject her efforts to make amends, but we also don't want to feel like we're being bought off. If anyone has any suggestions or has been through a similar situation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Update 3. Well, it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and honestly, not much has changed. We still have the check that Maria gave us, but we haven't cashed it. It's just sitting in our drawer, almost like a reminder of everything that's happened. I'm not really sure what we'll end up doing with it, but for now, it's just there. Things with Maria are pretty much the same. We're in a kind of holding pattern where we're all trying to be civil and respectful without diving too deep into the past. She's been respecting our boundaries, which is a huge relief. She doesn't show up unannounced anymore, and she stopped the constant barrage of texts and calls. It feels like she's genuinely trying to do better, and it gives me some hope for the future. Jaden and Maria talk on the phone regularly, and their conversations seem to be positive. I'm glad that their relationship hasn't been too badly impacted by everything that happened. I also talk to Maria sometimes. Our conversations are polite and a bit formal, but there's an effort on both sides to keep things friendly. So I think this will be my last update for a while. I don't expect much to change anytime soon, and I'm hoping that things will continue to improve little by little. I want to focus on the positive and keep moving forward, and I think that's the best thing I can do right now. If anything major happens, I might pop back in with an update, but for now, I'm going to take a step back and focus on living my life. Thank you again for everything, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Narcissistic stepdaughter's dream wedding canceled after she swindled me for years and trashed her mom for her deadbeat dad. Now the groom's family called it off because of her true colors. I don't know if I should have done this. I have canceled the wedding venue of my stepdaughter. Now that I have done it, I'm going to stand by my decision, no matter how guilty I feel. So yeah, some time ago I canceled the booking of the wedding venue of my stepdaughter. The wedding is supposed to be 2 days later, on this Saturday. I am also aware of the fact that canceling the venue means indirectly canceling the wedding because they can't get a new venue at the last moment. And unless they do a courtroom wedding, there's no way they're going to be married this Saturday. Before you guys judge me, I have my reasons for that. Hear me out. I have always had a troubled relationship with my stepdaughter. She's an entitled brat. Ever since I got married to her mother, she has been nothing but evil to me. I'm 61, M. I married June, 54, F, 14 years ago. This was the second marriage for both of us. I have 3 sons from my first wife. I had joint custody of the 3 sons until they became adults and moved out of their mother's house. All 3 live on their own and visit me sometimes during Christmas. June has a daughter, Nancy, 23, F, who has been a pain in the ass ever since she came into my life. She never liked me. The day she was introduced to me, she made it clear that I would not be her father and she's going to see me only as her mother's husband. It was quite a bummer for me because I was excited to be a father of a daughter. I had 3 boys, so I had always wanted a girl. While dating, when June said she had a daughter, I was over the moon to have a little daughter. Her decision was disappointing, yet I respected it and never crossed my line. I thought to become her friend and did everything to make her stay comfortable at my house. She was a notorious kid and gave her mother a tough time. She barely passed her school exams. She would sneak out of school and get into trouble with the teacher. She was even caught taking pills, for which she was suspended for a week. Most of the time, I used to ignore her evilness as teenage rage. I thought it would subside with time. I had seen it with my boys. They became calm and mature as the teenage years passed. So I encouraged June to be patient with Nancy when she grounded her. But Nancy is a different being. She was evil. Her teacher suggested we enroll her in therapy to ease her teenage turmoil, so we did. The therapy helped her a little. Her attitude towards me also got better. She wasn't bright in studies. She said she wanted to drop out of high school and pursue modeling. June was against this. She wanted Nancy to complete her education and then do whatever she wanted. The situation blew up between them. I intervened and suggested that she can start her modeling career while in school, and if she gets a breakthrough, then we can have this discussion. They both agreed to this, but I had to bear the cost of meddling. I paid for her portfolio shoot, makeovers, clothes, and God knows a lot of gibberish stuff. I happily did it as a way to bond with Nancy. She also started treating me as her dad. Sometimes she even called me Dad, and it brought tears to my eyes. Though she moved out after high school, she continued to reach out to me for money. Sometimes she even asked me not to tell her mother about it because June would get mad at her for taking money from me. She used to give me a reason that she was not getting enough modeling assignments, and if she told her mother, she would ask her to quit. Nancy was confident that one day her career would fly, and as a supportive dad, I stood by her. Eventually, she started reciprocating my feelings. Fast forward to 6 months ago when she announced that her boyfriend had proposed to her and they were going to get married this spring. We were happy for her, but we cautioned her to think again because her career was still unstable. June is an independent woman, and she wanted Nancy also to be financially independent before marrying. But as usual, Nancy didn't listen. She and her fiancé planned their wedding this month. Nancy wanted a perfect wedding for herself. One of my friends owns a beautiful farmhouse by the lake. He rents his place for weddings. There was no way Nancy would have been able to afford the wedding there. He charged in bombs. It is not only about rent. It is also difficult to secure a booking of that place because it is so high in demand. So very cleverly, she asked me if I could talk to my friend and rent the venue for her. The way she requested me, I could not say no. Nancy knows how to get away with her demands. She plans her moves ahead of time. For the last 1 year, she has been showering love on me. She posted a long heartfelt message on Father's Day and tagged me on several posts related to dad and father's love. I was over the moon. Little did I know that she was setting up a ground to take favors from me. So when she asked me to talk to my friend about booking his farmhouse, I didn't hesitate for a moment and said yes. It's kind of funny how easy it was for her to manipulate me. I called up my friend and asked him about it. He said it was difficult as this was wedding season. I called him for a drink and then explained the situation to him as to how important it was for me. I know I went too far to make myself likable. My friend called up his manager and confirmed the bookings for Nancy's wedding. He even gave me a hefty discount on the booking. Even with the discount, Nancy couldn't afford it, so I paid for it. When I told Nancy about the booking confirmation, she ran and hugged me. She cried like a baby and said she couldn't have got a better father. It was such a happy moment in my life. It feels so disheartening that all those were fake. Her true colors came out at her pre-wedding dinner. Unlike our times when a pre-wedding dinner was just between two families, these days it's like a small wedding. They called it to be a ring ceremony where they exchanged rings and announced their wedding date. The ceremony was followed by a dinner. It was all fun and laughter until I saw someone. My face turned pale. It was June's ex-husband. June and I exchanged looks, and she was equally petrified to find him at the party. Nancy was too busy to be questioned at that time, so we let it slide. It is not like June, and I have a problem with Nancy having contact with her biological dad. The thing is, her biological dad is an abuser. He's an alcoholic and a loser. He was leeching on June's income while mentally abusing her. When the mental abuse turned into physical, June left him for her own good. Since then, he has been a ghost to June and Nancy. If he had the slightest feeling for his daughter, he would have called her or tried to meet her, but he never checked on his daughter. So seeing him suddenly at the party was a shock for both of us. He was still a loser. One could say it with the way he was gulping free wine, sitting in the dark corner of the hall. I didn't have a good feeling about his presence, but we tried to brush it off, thinking Nancy would have called him just for formality. After the ring ceremony, she raised a toast to the man she loved the most. She described him to be the one who always had her back, loved her unconditionally, and is the most important person in her life. I was stupid to think it was about me. I sat there blushing like a clown. I hate myself for being so delusional. I made castles in the air, imagining she would call me onto the stage and tell everyone that the toast was about me. We'll hug each other and cry and express our love for each other. All my daydreaming shattered when she called her loser biological dad. She hugged him and cried and thanked him for loving her without any motive. I felt it was an indirect jab at me. Her dad grinned at me as if he read my delusional mind. June was also very upset with Nancy. After that moment, we both remained at our table, holding each other's hands for the rest of the night. Nancy knew she'd messed up, or maybe she did it intentionally because she never came to our table and spent the rest of the evening with her fiancé's friends and her dad. June wanted to confront her right after the party, but Nancy was happy with the night's festivities, so we decided to discuss this later. Earlier, Nancy was living with her fiancé, but 1 month before the wedding, she moved in with us as a ritual to remain distant from her fiancé. She would move back with him after the wedding 2 days later, which was a week ago. Nancy came home after her engagement night's hangover subsided. June couldn't hold herself. She asked Nancy what made her call her dad to the function. Nancy behaved as if June had said something offensive. She blew up. She said he was her dad and she didn't need anyone's approval to invite her dad. June got angry at her answer and reminded her how her dad was an abuser and abandoned her after the divorce. June asked her how she got in touch with her dad. Nancy started yelling at June and said it was all June's fault that she couldn't have her father in her life. Nancy also accused June of manipulating her against her father. Nancy said her dad reached out on Facebook and insisted on meeting her. In Nancy's words, "He cried like a baby and told me the truth about you and him. He told me how you gaslight the situation at home when he caught you cheating on him. You blocked him from meeting me and fed me lies that he didn't come to see me. I hate myself for being resentful of my poor dad. You left him because he was poor. It was because of the pain you gave to him that he turned alcoholic." It seemed that Nancy was directly pasting the words her father had told her. What a liar he is. I don't interfere in their discussion, but Nancy was turning me against June and was hurting her with her cruel words. So I calmly asked Nancy where this was coming from. She gave me a deadly look as if I asked something very terrible. She said, "My dad is the only one who cares for me and loves me unconditionally. Unlike you who just pretends to love me. You are pretentious. You only pretend to care for me to impress Mom. My dad doesn't need to impress anyone." June got so mad at her for talking to me like this. June said, "Enough of overhyping your loser dad. He's nothing but a piece of crap who abused me mentally and physically. He doesn't love you." Nancy was not ready to accept that her dad was abusive. God knows what lies he has fed her that she started hating us overnight. The argument between June and Nancy got so ugly that June said she wouldn't attend Nancy's wedding. I tried to calm them down, but Nancy charged at me and said I should stop pretending and shouldn't overstep my boundaries. She said she's fine if June and I didn't want to attend her wedding because she didn't need us either, and that her dad is just enough for her as he was going to walk her down the aisle. I was so disappointed at this that I couldn't keep myself composed. I said, "Really, Nancy? You're going to take this away from me just because of this argument?" She laughed at my face and said, "Did you really think you would be walking beside me on my wedding day? Delusional. You remember when Mom introduced you for the first time? I told you not to become my father. Did you forget that?" I was aghast at her changing colors. I could have reminded her of all the favors I have done for her. I had her back all the time, even when her mom gave up on her. In return, I'm getting this? I was so disheartened that I didn't say a word and pushed off to my bedroom. After I left, I overheard June and Nancy still yelling at each other, but I had zoned out. Sometime later, June came to me and hugged me and cried. She apologized profusely for Nancy's behavior. I was feeling so down that I didn't say anything. June has told Nancy that she won't attend the wedding if her father walks her down the aisle. I told June not to be so harsh on Nancy. After all, that man is her dad, no matter what. A couple of days ago, we found something that forced me to make a decision that no dad would ever do. Cancel her wedding. I don't know how, but June caught hold of Nancy's last 1 year's bank statement, and we found that she has been transferring money to her dad. It was shocking because Nancy doesn't earn enough, and she borrows money from June and me to make her ends meet. The amount was also not small. It was like $10,000 monthly. It looked like her dad was feeding on Nancy's money, or rather our money. June could not content herself, and she barged into Nancy's room, asking her what she thinks she was doing. The next 1 hour, my house turned into a battlefield. Nancy proudly accepted that she was helping her dad financially because he needed money. June reminded her that she was thriving on our money and she had no right to give our money to her dad without telling us. Nancy refused to accept that she did any wrong by giving our money to him. It came out that her dad had been manipulating her against us and extorting money from her, feeding her with lies and his low-life sad stories. Nancy crossed all limits when she started abusing her mother, calling her names. I almost was about to slap her, but when I stopped myself, June lost her mind and threw all of Nancy's belongings out of the house and said she was on her own now and that we are no longer going to help her in any way. I somehow pacified June and brought her to the bedroom. Meanwhile, Nancy vandalized the room she had been staying in, breaking the lights, furniture, and window panes and pulling down the curtains. She abused me on top of her voice, calling me simp and womanizer before leaving the house. Writing this down is making me 10 times angrier, and I feel canceling her wedding venue was a very light form of punishment for her. I should have done more harm to her. Maybe called cops on her and got her arrested. As soon as she left, I called my friend and requested him to cancel the bookings I made for Nancy's wedding. I offered him the full amount so that he doesn't incur any loss. He asked me if everything was fine. I said, let's park the story for the next drinking evening, but right now, cancel the booking. His manager canceled it on the portal and sent me a confirmation. I'm not a vindictive man, but this time Nancy had taken her narcissism too far. Update. Hello all. Thanks for the validation of my action. Though I wasn't seeking one, but it feels nice to know that I wasn't being the monster. Here's the update of what happened next. Though I was stiff all the while that what I did was right, the day before the wedding, my guilty conscience kicked in. I sent her a voicemail that she should arrange her new wedding venue because I canceled the last one, but she had blocked me. I felt relieved that at least I tried to do my last-minute damage control. Now it's on her. We just sat there at home to see what happened next. Next, on the day of the wedding, my phone gets bombarded with several texts, voicemails, and calls from Nancy asking why didn't the guards allow them inside the premise. I saw my phone blowing up, but I didn't respond. It was fun to watch her helpless. She went as far as trespassing at the venue along with her friends. My friend called me up asking me what should he do because she was not ready to leave, giving the venue management a tough time. I asked him to call cops on her and do whatever he would have done with other trespassers. He took the hint and called cops and got them arrested. Sadly for the groom, his friends also got into trouble because they were also standing near the venue gate arguing with the security personnel. The groom's dad called me asking me what's the matter because it was embarrassing for him. Their guests were also supposed to arrive in a few hours, and the venue was blocked. I told him the matter in brief and he was shocked. He said he would quickly call up all his guests and tell them that the wedding is postponed. He was definitely irate but didn't show his anger to me. June had blocked Nancy and said whatever happened, she was not going to help her anymore. The next day, the groom's dad called me and said he wanted to meet me. I refused, but he said it was important. He promised to keep it discreet. He showed up at our house. We were hesitant to open up in front of him, but he insisted that he needed to know the truth because his son's future is at stake. He was shocked to know the truth about Nancy and her dad because they have been fed with a different version of the story. Nancy has told her fiancé and his family that I was an evil stepfather and didn't let her meet her father, who was a golden man, and that June had cheated on him to marry me. P.S. June and I met 3 years after her divorce. He told us that the cops had arrested all of them, including Nancy's dad. According to the cops, he was the most notorious one, encouraging everyone to climb the wall and get inside the venue. The cops also revealed that Nancy's dad had been registered with other petty cases in the past. This got him suspicious about Nancy's stories, and he came to us to know the truth. He said that he understood that no one would go to such lengths to cancel their daughter's wedding unless it's something extreme. I asked him if Nancy got married in a court or what's their next move. He said they are planning a small wedding next month because they have exhausted a lot of money this time and didn't get a refund from caterers and decorators. He also gave a hint that there might not be any wedding because he's going to tell Nancy's truth to his son. He suspected that Nancy might be poaching his son's money to help her dad. Now that we have curled up our hands, 2 days ago we got a call on our house phone, and a man was yelling at June for ripping him off the free money. He was June's ex-husband. He was laughing like a maniac. He said it took him just one meeting and some tears to manipulate Nancy against us, and since then he had been living on our money. Nancy was sending him money for his monthly expenditures. What a loser. He said now that we have cut off ties with Nancy, she's no longer helping him with the money, so he's going to disappear again. He's still that alcoholic loser he had been years ago. We have no update about Nancy yet. June and I have blocked her number, and she doesn't have a face to show up at our house after what she had done to us. Now I don't feel guilty about canceling the venue. I feel proud of my decision. I'll be happier if her fiancé breaks up with her. I'll take the credit for saving his life. I met her fiancé a couple of times, and he seemed to be a good lad. I mean, yes, she has been lying and fooling him. She is still as mean and narcissistic as she was in her teenage years. She doesn't deserve any love because she doesn't respect it. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Wife cheated on me with a guy from her club after 20 years of marriage. Now the whole neighborhood is shunning her while rallying behind me and our kids. My wife, 48, and I, 49, have been together for nearly 20 years, married for 19 of them. We have a total of 4 kids, 2 girls, ages 18 and 16, and 2 boys, ages 15 and 12. This year will be our 20th anniversary, though it's safe to say that I am not in the mood for celebrating that event. I'll never be celebrating it at all. The cheating never should have come as a surprise because my wife had been threatening to leave for a few years now. I'd take it in stride. Let her say what she wanted, and then things would go back to normal for a while. This started way after our kids were born, so for the sake of the kids, I just put up with it. My wife has always enjoyed spending time with her friends. At least once a week she would go out drinking with them and come home late. I always enjoyed spending time with my kids and being at home with them anyway, so it didn't matter to me. Once upon a time, my wife used to like it back when the kids were smaller, but at some point that changed again. It didn't matter to me because I loved being at home with them. It was this year that my wife started going out multiple times a week rather than just once. I didn't think much of it at first. All I thought was that since the kids were getting a lot older now, she just had even less interest in staying home with them. There were 4 of them, but I tried my best to be enough for them. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. One day, I was contacted by a family member of my wife who confessed to me that my wife had been cheating on me for more than a year with a guy named Greg. They met at one of the clubs my wife frequented with her friends. Though they have told me since that they had no idea it was happening, my wife was doing a great job of being secretive that not even her closest friends were able to figure it out. She hadn't confessed to this family member. Rather, they had spotted them kissing in a McDonald's parking lot. Classy, I know. We might have not been very close, but she felt like it was important to confess the truth to me. When she got home from going out with her friends that night, I confronted her with what her family member said. At first, there was the typical denial from her. Then when it became clear that I wasn't going to buy it because this family member had no reason to lie to me, her demeanor changed to one of anger. "What did you expect?" she shouted. "You never interested me and only paid attention to the kids." I admit that after a while of my wife being constantly hot and cold, I gave up and stopped trying. But what else would you expect? One could only be burned for so long before they stopped wanting to get hurt by the fire. For a few days after that, we didn't speak until I finally decided that I couldn't go through the motions anymore, even for the sake of my kids. It wasn't very healthy for them anyway, something I realized now with therapy. So I told her I was officially filing for divorce. At first, she seemed thrilled that she was going to be free of everything. She could be free to continue with her relationship with this guy Greg, who I knew nothing about and didn't want to learn about either. It's what she probably wanted for years now. Why she didn't just bring it up to me rather than string me along was beyond me. Friends and family seemed shocked by the news. I didn't say much about the situation, telling them nothing more than she stepped out of the marriage and I was seeking a divorce. Any questions they had, they could send my wife's way. Let her deal with them. It's been a couple of months since D-Day, and I'm not going to lie. It was difficult to get to a point where I was no longer struggling every day. Slowly, I started to climb out of my shell. I've lost 30 pounds and gotten back into working out. My kids also seem happier. That was probably the best thing to see. I should have realized how the tense environment between me and their mother was making them feel. All 4 of them didn't say as much, but it seemed like a weight off their shoulders. They had chosen to live and spend much of their time with me. My wife was fine with it in the beginning. Then the consequences of her actions started to make her newfound freedom seem not so free. We lived in a city, but our neighborhood was quite close-knit. My wife was always the more outgoing and friendly one, so she interacted with them more. However, after news of her cheating reached the block, they started to shun her. I honestly was surprised to see them cut her off and rally around me. She was always more of an active neighbor. Yet, despite that, they were quick to give me whatever support they could give. Something interesting happened last week. My wife had come by to see the kids, which I allowed because I still wanted them to have a relationship with their mother. I walked the kids downstairs and saw my wife waiting outside the building. One of our neighbors walked by, one that my wife had been very close with. She said hello, and the neighbor completely ignored her. The icing on the cake was that when she saw me and the kids, she said hello. My wife was red in the face from anger and embarrassment. She practically stormed away from the apartment with the kids trailing behind her, looking confused and a little embarrassed. I almost burst out laughing, even if it would have been pretty immature to do it. Not that I'd be blamed. Look at what my wife had done. I made sure to text them and check in to see if everything was going all right, because I was a little concerned with my wife's attitude. However, my eldest daughter assured me that everything was going all right. My wife wasn't taking anything out on them, so I could relax and be assured that they were going to have a good time. I've gotten the feeling that any time she comes around to pick up the kids, this is going to happen. I don't feel anything towards her and certainly not 1 ounce of pity. My wife, and hopefully ex-wife soon once everything is signed, is the one who did all of this to herself, so she is the only one she can blame. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep focusing on me and the kids. I don't know if romance will ever be in the cards for me again, but that's a bridge I'll cross if I ever come to it. For now, the kids are my #1 priority, something my wife never quite managed to learn in all the years we were married. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Sil hated me for years and wore white to my wedding, while criticizing everything I did. When I visited my sick mom, she called CPS to take my daughter. It turns out she wanted custody of my girl. I've been with my husband, Harry, for almost 3 years now. I love his family. His mother is sweet and caring. His father has always enjoyed talking with me and easily made me part of the family. When my husband and I were first dating, we had broken up for a few months due to some misunderstanding. However, when we got back together, his dad was the most excited to know that we had worked things out. There's just one person in my partner's family who hasn't really warmed up to me, and that's my sister-in-law, Sarah. She is Harry's older sister. Ever since I started dating my boyfriend, things with Sarah have always been a bit awkward. I have heard stories from other girls who have dated guys with sisters. There's often some sort of power dynamic at play, but I had never experienced this until I started dating my husband. When Sarah was cold to me, I didn't let it bother me too much, especially because I felt like I fit right in with the rest of his family. Harry did eventually tell me as to why his sister was so possessive about him. You see, while they were growing up, their mother's health wasn't doing so well, and she was constantly in and out of hospitals. So their father was really distracted taking care of their mother. His sister, who was older than him, felt like she was responsible for him. She would make sure he completed his assignments and would even cook for him. She would constantly tell him how she was his second mother and act like one. Also, she would not allow him to hang out with any girls, and he would have to ask for her permission before going out on a date. She would constantly call him and check up on him to make sure that he was okay. Sarah would also interfere in his relationships and fight with his exes, which meant a lot of girls would break up with my husband as they could not deal with his sister's nosiness. As they started growing up and their mother's health improved, Harry became more and more independent and stopped taking permission from his sister. She would constantly tell him to hang out with her, but he would refuse and go off partying with his friends. Sarah didn't like that and had even gone so far as to install a tracking app on his phone so that she could find out where he was. On one occasion, she showed up at a party that Harry had gone to with his friends. She yelled at him for not inviting her and basically embarrassed him in front of everyone. This led to a huge fight, and this is how Harry found out about the tracking app she had installed on his phone. He told their parents everything, and Sarah was scolded because of that. When Harry first told me about all this, I thought of breaking up with him and running away from all the craziness. I mean, this wasn't normal at all. However, I loved him and I could not judge him based on his sister's actions. I mean, he was a victim in all this as well, so I decided to stay. However, I've been really careful around her from that day on. In my husband's family, there's always been a strong tradition of gathering for family dinners every couple of weeks and for every holiday without fail. We take turns in these dinners, rotating between different family members' homes. It's during these gatherings that Sarah and I mostly get to interact, because otherwise she never bothers to call me. I don't mind. Hence, when we meet, I try to be as polite as possible. However, she tends to make comments or taunts that might seem harmless at first glance, but are actually not. For instance, after we finish eating, I usually offer to clean the dishes while my boyfriend and his father clean up the table. Sarah sometimes helps me clean the dishes if she is ever in the mood. One evening, as I stood at the sink tackling the mountain of dishes, Sarah sauntered over and remarked, "Yeah, after how much you ate during dinner, you should clean all these dishes to lose some extra calories." Now, I don't mind doing the dishes on my own, but I was really hurt by the comment. It seemed like she was fat-shaming me when I wasn't even fat to begin with. Her comment struck a nerve, and I replied back that maybe she should help me clean the dishes also, because she has clearly put on some holiday weight. Now, hearing this, Sarah immediately starts to yell at me for saying such an insensitive thing. When Phil, and Harry rushed over to check on us, she told them how shameless I was of calling her fat. I never called her fat to begin with, so I denied her accusations. In the end, she angrily left. When no one came out to support her, she later texted me demanding that I apologize to her for everything, but I refused, telling her that I didn't think I said anything worth apologizing for. Ever since then, Sarah has hated me even more. She has been more and more rude to me when people are not around. When Sarah was getting married to her then-boyfriend, Neil, she informed everyone during a family event about how she wanted all of us to keep our Christmas dates open because she was getting married somewhere around that date. I ignored her as I had already made up my mind to not attend her wedding unless I was free that day. Later, after dinner, we were all sitting and discussing trivial things when Sarah asked me loudly if I still planned on visiting my family that year. Usually, every year, me and my family made a point to go on a trip together since we all lived so far away and never got to see each other. I don't know why Sarah even asked me that because she hardly ever interacted with me. Nevertheless, I calmly replied that yes, I would be visiting my family at the end of the year. Sarah then questioned whether I planned on skipping her wedding. I assured her that attending her wedding wasn't an issue for me, but I needed to know the date in advance to coordinate with my family plans, as I only saw them once a year. However, Sarah wasn't satisfied. She raised her voice, accusing me of being selfish and claiming that this was why she had never liked me, since I always do what I want without thinking about other people. I tried to explain that I simply needed to know the date before committing, but Sarah persisted, accusing me of being ungrateful for everything her family had done for me. Her voice grew louder, and I could feel the discomfort of those around us attempting to defuse the situation. My mother-in-law intervened, reminding Sarah that I hadn't outright declined her invitation and it wasn't fair to expect me to cancel long-standing plans with my family, especially when they all saw each other monthly throughout the year. Sarah was still pissed but let it go. Later, Harry told me that what I did was very wrong and that I should drop plans with my family altogether for Sarah's wedding. I pointed out to him that I never asked him to accompany me to any family event, so he had no right to force me to attend the wedding of his sister when she clearly hates me so much. He argued back that it was my action that had made her hate me, and that I should resolve this issue with his sister, otherwise it would affect our relationship in the end. And feeling pressured and wanting to avoid further conflict, I sent Sarah a text apologizing for any misunderstanding and canceled my plans with my family. It was a difficult decision, but I hoped it would ease tensions within my partner's family. However, to my surprise, Sarah's wedding never took place that Christmas. Despite all the drama and upheaval caused by her disagreement, her marriage plans seemed to have fizzled out because of financial constraints. She had a court marriage the next year in a small reception in her backyard. I was so pissed at her that she created all this drama and I had canceled all my plans for nothing. Hence, I never attended her reception. Harry did insist on me attending, but I put my foot down as I had enough of his sister's drama. I also stopped going to their multiple family dinners every month. I only went for special holidays. Otherwise, I would ask Harry to go alone. He used to go but would then come back and complain about how he was bored without me. As time passed, he also stopped attending multiple family events. I don't think it was necessarily because of me, but before he was available to his family at the drop of a hat. However, after we moved in, his priorities did change like anyone's would. His sister would call him and ask about why he wasn't attending this dinner or that event, and he would tell her how he was tired or he had too much work. However, I started hearing from some of my husband's cousins that Sil had been going around telling everyone how I was to be blamed for all this. According to her, I was stopping Harry from meeting his family when it wasn't even true. I asked Harry to clarify the situation to his sister as I didn't want to be used as a scapegoat. He agreed, and during the next family event, he took it upon himself to confront Sarah. I wasn't privy to their conversation, but from what I later heard, it erupted into a heated argument. Sarah accused me of being abusive towards Harry, claiming she had observed a pattern of narcissistic behavior in me over the years. She alleged that I was deliberately isolating Harry from his family, painting me as manipulative and controlling. When Harry defended me, telling her how I always encouraged him to participate in family events, Sarah dismissed it, saying I was just manipulative and he could not see it. She hurled insults at me, questioning my character and suggesting that Harry deserved better. Despite Harry's attempts to reason with her and defend our relationship, Sarah grew even more incensed. She berated him, accusing him of being blinded by love and unable to see how I was supposedly using him for his money and looks. The confrontation left Harry really shaken up, and he came back home to tell me that he was done with his sister altogether. For months he blocked her and didn't let Mill and Phil guilt him into talking to her. However, things changed when we found out from relatives that Sil was pregnant. Mill and Phil had an intervention for Harry and pleaded with him to mend things with his sister before she gave birth. Harry had no choice but to agree, and he had a few lunches with his sister after that where they talked things out. Everything was okay between them. However, she never once apologized to me for how she had talked about me. When I pointed it out to Harry, he told me to just let things go since she is going to be a mother soon and hopefully will grow up. I wish that was true. After my sister-in-law, Sarah, gave birth to her son, Van, her neediness seemed to escalate. She began frequently calling Harry to babysit her baby. She would tell him how she and her husband needed to work to support the baby, so the least he could do as a brother was take care of his nephew. However, Harry, feeling apprehensive about looking after an infant alone, would often check in with me first. Sometimes I would agree, and we both would babysit his nephew together, but Sarah's demand for babysitting kept growing as time passed. Sarah's reliance on us to watch her son, Van, became increasingly frequent and demanding. Whether she needed to run errands, attend appointments, or simply take a break, she would always turn to Harry to babysit. It reached a point where it seemed as though she expected him to fulfill the role of Van's father. However, Harry wasn't the only one looking after her child. It was me too, and I didn't want to give up my free time to look after a baby. It was exhausting. Hence, after a point, I started to decline to babysit. Whenever I declined, Harry would also refuse to babysit Van, much to Sarah's frustration. It's important to note here that I never told Harry that he wasn't allowed to look after his nephew, and I would in fact repeatedly urge him to step up and take responsibility without relying on me all the time. However, Harry would try to justify by citing his lack of experience with infants as reason for his hesitation to look after his nephew all alone. I am sure Sil blamed me for this as well, because she resorted to manipulation tactics. She would guilt-trip Harry by saying things like, "My kid really wants this," or, "would mean so much to so and so if you did this." She would also start throwing out random dates and asking if he had any plans without providing any context, attempting to trap us into agreeing to things with her. If Harry told her that we were free, she would then tell him how she had plans with her friends and would drop the kid off at our place, which meant we would be forced to babysit. When Harry and I were planning our wedding, Sarah never once called me to congratulate us on our wedding. However, during a family dinner where I was in attendance also, she demanded that Harry and I should pay for a nanny to look after her son during the event because she wanted to be able to drink and enjoy herself without having to worry about her child. Harry refused, telling her that it wasn't our responsibility to cover the cost of childcare for her son, and if she didn't want to bring him, she could make arrangements with her husband's family to look after Van. Sarah claimed that she didn't trust her husband's family enough to leave her son with them. When her husband, Neil, overheard that, they had an argument, with Neil telling her about how absurd she was being and that his parents would be more than willing to look after Van for that night. During a conversation with my mother-in-law about my wedding dress, I excitedly showed her some pictures. The dress was really beautiful, and it was honestly my dream dress. However, Sarah interjected with a comment about how it was all such a waste of money and boasted about how she had been smart enough to get married in court. My mother-in-law gently reminded her that she hadn't had any other choice because of her financial constraints, which is why she opted for a courthouse wedding. Sarah became defensive, insisting that she could have chosen a different venue but decided against it, since she wanted to be a good wife and not squander away her husband's money. She then turned to me, implying that not every woman could make sacrifices like she had. I calmly informed her that both Harry and I were contributing equally to the wedding expenses, so I was actually being an even better wife by not solely relying on my husband for everything. This seemed to infuriate her, and she spent the rest of the evening sulking with a childish scowl on her face. When I went to my bachelorette party with my friends in Vegas, we all had a great time and posted lots of pictures. However, Sarah later claimed to my husband that I must have hooked up with someone there because, according to her, no self-respecting woman would ever drink and party so much before their wedding, even though her own brother had also partied and got drunk in his bachelor party with his friends. During our rehearsal dinner, Sarah made it a point to tell everyone about how it was interesting that I had chosen to party so wildly before tying the knot. She told me that I could have had a more subdued bachelorette party here also instead of going to Vegas. I simply laughed off Sarah's insinuations and calmly explained to her that I enjoyed going to Vegas, and since it was my own money funding the trip, I saw no issue with indulging in some pre-wedding fun. On the morning of our wedding, as I was getting ready, my mother-in-law approached me with a worried expression. She informed me that Sarah had just sent her a photo of her dress, which turned out to be off-white and could almost pass off as a wedding dress. Seeing the picture, I felt a surge of anger rising within me. My mother-in-law explained that she had no prior knowledge of Sarah's choice of attire, and even showed me messages saying she had asked her not to wear it, but Sarah had replied that she was already on her way, so she couldn't change her outfit anymore. I don't know what would possess someone to wear an off-white dress to someone's wedding, and I knew that she was doing this knowingly. Fuming with frustration, I called Harry and asked him to handle the situation as I didn't want to confront his sister on our wedding day. Harry intervened, and with the help of his father, they swiftly resolved the issue. Harry's father had rushed out and purchased a new dress for Sarah, insisting that she changed before she would be allowed into our wedding venue. I was relieved that they handled the situation immediately. However, I never forgave her for that. During the reception, Sarah approached me and accused me of being a controlling bride, telling me how I was just jealous for making her change into a different dress. I told her that I was fed up with her gaslighting and manipulation and that I had enough of her games. I told her that I had no interest in entertaining her childish behavior any longer. Harry also stepped in, coming to my defense and reprimanding his sister for her insensitivity on our wedding day. He pointed out how embarrassing it would have been if she had actually arrived at the wedding wearing that off-white dress. Sarah didn't expect Harry to talk this way with her, so she started to cry her crocodile tears, and eventually she left the reception. Before departing, her husband, Neil, approached me and offered a sincere apology for everything. He told me how he had also asked Sarah not to wear the dress, but she had insisted on wearing it. This only proved my suspicion that she had wanted to jeopardize my big day. Since that day, the relationship between Sarah and me remained strained. It wasn't until my daughter, Mary, was born that we started to see a glimmer of hope for reconciliation. The arrival of a new family member seemed to soften Sarah's demeanor, and she apologized to me when she came to visit me at the hospital. She showed genuine interest and care towards Mary. Harry and his family were very happy that she had taken the first step in mending our relationship. I thought Sarah would have matured and grown up since I had grown tired of fighting with her. Also, over time, I have encouraged my daughter to spend time with Sarah's son since they are cousins and I want them to be close. Sarah and I sometimes even hang out so that our children can play together. We would talk about our lives and our husbands. This is how I also know that Sarah has been trying to have another child for quite some time. She has told me privately that she has always wanted a daughter, so she can buy her daughter cute dresses and take her out shopping. While I understand the longing for a specific gender, I would always tell her that she can't control the gender of her baby, so she shouldn't stress about it too much. On various occasions, I have noticed Sarah always hugging and kissing my daughter during family events. My daughter isn't as touchy-feely as others, so she gets very awkward and starts to cry. However, I never thought much about it until now. Recently, my mother fell ill and was hospitalized, leaving my father to care for her alone. Harry, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and I made plans to fly in and visit her. While they would stay for only 4 days, I would be staying there for 2 weeks to support my father and be there for my mother during her recovery. Harry would be taking care of our daughter during our absence. I wanted to take my daughter with us, but because we would be in the hospital the whole day, I didn't want to expose her to the germs. I also knew that she would easily get bored, so Harry offered to ask his sister for help for the 4 days that he would be coming with me. Surprisingly, she enthusiastically agreed to look after our daughter. Before we left, I gave her a list of things my daughter was allergic to, and she assured me that everything would be okay. As we landed at our destination and waited to collect our luggage, I received a call from an unknown number. Assuming it was the hospital, I answered, but it was Child Protective Services on the line. My heart pounded in my chest as CPS demanded to know our whereabouts and why we had left our daughter in someone else's care. I explained that we were visiting my mother with my husband and had arranged for our daughter to stay with his sister. To my shock and dismay, CPS informed me that Sarah had filed a complaint against me for abandoning my child and was planning on fighting for custody in court. In a state of panic, I frantically tried to explain that this wasn't the case and that she was my husband's sister who had agreed to take care of our child because we had come to visit my sick mother. I even handed the phone to my husband in hopes of clarifying the situation, but despite our efforts to reason with CPS, it became clear that one of us needed to return immediately to address the allegations in person. Phil and Mill were visibly distressed with witnessing our panic, and they attempted to reach out to Sarah, but she refused to answer their calls. In the end, my husband hastily booked a return flight, which he had to pay twice for since tickets were quite expensive. His parents and I remained behind to visit my mother as we were already here and had no other choice. The situation left us reeling, and I was so distressed that I could not rest until my husband called me to let me know that he had Mary and that she was perfectly safe. Nothing had happened to her. I started to cry because, on one hand, I was already distressed that my mother was hospitalized, and on the other hand, my Sil had tried to take my child away from me. Harry's parents and I have pressed him for an explanation several times regarding why Sarah would file such a false report. My husband has reassured us that he would address all our concerns once we returned home. However, I find it difficult to remain with my mother for a week under such distress, so I've decided to fly back with Phil and Mill in 4 days. I'm currently overwhelmed with anger and frustration towards Sarah. I can't comprehend what could have led her to call CPS on us. I will kill her if I ever see her in front of me ever again. Despite my husband's reassurances that I'll understand everything once I'm back, I can't shake the feeling that he's not taking the situation seriously enough, which only adds to my confusion and frustration. Aita for thinking what my Sil did was unforgivable. Update 1. It's been 4 days since my last update, and I wanted to update that I am finally going back home today. I don't want to give away any medical details, but my mother is slowly recovering, even though she is still hospitalized. Once I have confirmed that Mary is doing well, I may consider returning again depending on how things unfold with my family. I'll be sure to provide another update soon. Also, want to address concerns regarding my husband's capability to care for our child. While he was initially tasked with babysitting his nephew when he was younger due to his sister's demands, he has since matured into a wonderful father. I have complete confidence in his ability to take care of our daughter. He cares for her attentively and treats her with the utmost love and care. Kindly don't blame my husband for this fiasco of why my Sil called the CPS. For the last 4 days, Phil and Mill have tried everything to get in touch with her and her husband, but no one is answering their calls. I don't know if that is fishy or not, but I just wanted to update that here. Update 2. I know it's been a week since I updated, and all of you have been messaging me and commenting on my posts like crazy, asking me for an update. I want you all to calm down and stop imagining the worst-case scenario. First of all, my husband and kid are perfectly safe. Nothing has happened to my child, and she is her playful self as usual. Later, when we all sat down together to talk, my husband, Harry, explained the events that had unfolded. He revealed to us that the reason we had been unable to get in touch with her was because she was in a psychiatric hospital. We were taken aback, and Mill looked concerned as Harry went on to explain more. Apparently, Sarah has become obsessed with getting a daughter, which I kind of already knew, but what I didn't know was that on the day we left Mary in her care, she saw it as an opportunity to fulfill her desire to have a daughter. Sarah planned on taking us to court and fighting for custody so she could take away our daughter. She did tell her plans to Neil, who didn't believe her at first and thought it was a joke or something because no one in their right mind would even think something like this. However, she did file the complaint, and then Harry had to fly back home to clarify the situation with CPS. After hearing his explanation and verifying all his details, CPS firmly warned Sarah against filing false complaints in the future. Later, Harry confronted her also as he could not believe that his own sister could have done something like this to us. It was then that Sarah started justifying her actions, telling him how she had watched me and my daughter for months, and apparently I was not a good mother since I didn't kiss or hug my kid enough. She told Harry that every child loves to be held, but that whenever she held my daughter, Mary, she would start to cry or get uncomfortable, which made Sarah believe that I was perhaps abusing my daughter in private. Harry got pissed hearing this and told his sister that her behavior wasn't normal at all and that she was starting to get too obsessed with her daughter. Sarah kept repeating how she deserved to have our daughter, so Harry pointed out how ridiculous her assumptions were and how wrong she was to call CPS on her own family without any proof. Eventually, after hours and hours of talk, Sarah broke down, admitting to Harry that she was not in the right state of mind and that she needed help. She said how she fantasizes about stealing our kid away from us since she has always wanted a daughter. Even her husband, Neil, was shocked to learn about the extent of her struggles. In the end, Harry and Neil had a heartfelt conversation, and Neil packed a bag for Sarah so he could drive her to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. This is why she has been unavailable for the past few days. Neil apologized to my father-in-law and mother-in-law for not picking up their calls, expressing his desire to clarify everything in person. Since then, Van has been staying with us for the time being. I know Neil works long hours, and I don't want Van to be alone in the house, so we've welcomed him into our home to ensure he has company and support during this challenging time. Now that everything has been explained, I can understand why my sister-in-law called CPS and why my husband waited until now to explain everything. It's a lot to process, and honestly, I'm at a loss for words myself. Update 3. Wow, my post has gone viral. I listened to all of your advice and I have talked to my husband as well. He has agreed to take a restraining order against my sister, even if she is getting treated for her mental health. I am honestly scared of leaving my child behind and visiting my parents next week. However, my husband and in-laws have assured me that they are going to make sure that nothing happens to my child. I also feel immensely guilty that I didn't spend enough time with my parents, especially given my mother's illness. Hopefully, this time I can spend some quality time with my father and be there to support and watch over my mother as she continues her recovery journey. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Exposed my girlfriend's affair at her work to get back at her. Now she's destroying my stuff, and I'm taking her to court. Hello everyone. I'm Rick, 29M, and my ex-girlfriend, Taylor, 27F, and I were in a relationship for 3 years, and at the edge of getting married, I made a shocking discovery. I first met my girlfriend at an organization I went to for a job interview. She was one of the applicants. While waiting for the interview, we broke into a conversation. We exchanged our contacts while leaving after the interview. Ideally, I thought I would get the job because I was very qualified. Unfortunately, I didn't clear, but she did. We soon started chatting, and she helped with any interview lead and shared tips for the interview, which helped her crack the last one. Luckily, I got one a couple of months later, and we became friends. Aside from being in the same career field, one of the things that attracted me to my girlfriend was her witty conversations, sense of humor, and the energy she gave off when I met Taylor. I had no intention of falling in love with her. It just happened. I only asked for her number because she looked like the kind of witty friend I'd love to have in my circle of friends. To be more specific, we exchanged numbers to keep each other posted about the job we were interviewing for. Eventually, as we got closer, we fell in love and started dating. We dated for almost 3 years before I learned something that destroyed our relationship. During the years we dated, Taylor and I lived together for a year. But after 1 year, she said that she wanted to shift back with her best friend. Her reason was that we would, anyways, be living together after the wedding. Hence, she wanted to spend her bachelorhood with her best friend. I didn't see that to be a problem and gladly gave her the space she needed. She visited me on weekends and stayed over on some days. So, basically, she was living both with me and her best friend. She kept shuffling from my house to hers. We were a beautiful power couple, and even without telling people we were dating, they could quickly tell from how we acted whenever we went out together. In the past, I'd been in a committed relationship once. After the relationship ended badly, I decided to take a break, but everything changed when I met Taylor. Throughout our relationship, I supported Taylor in everything she did. I encouraged her to take courses, work harder, and invest my all in her. From the second year of our relationship, I knew she was the woman I would marry because she ticked all the boxes. She knew how to care for me and love me, and she also handled other areas of our relationship well. The first year we lived together, we split bills and took care of everything together. But after she started shuffling my house and her best friend's house, the splitting of bills stopped. On our anniversaries and on her birthdays, I gifted her the things I knew she loved, just to make her happy, and to be honest, she was my priority all the time. I sacrificed a lot for her and tried everything I could to keep our relationship happy. I didn't do all this because I was desperate to be with her. I did them because I valued our relationship and wanted it to be all-round peace and happiness for us. I remember this vividly. Shortly before Taylor started shuffling my and her best friend's houses, one night as we were watching a movie, she asked a weird question out of the blue. She asked for my opinion on open relationships. I instantly remarked that people who had open relationships were not in love with each other and laughed. She took offense and tried to counter my statement. She went on and on to tell me that she knew many couples in open relationships, and they loved each other so much. She told me that I sounded archaic. I didn't take it seriously and changed the topic. Another day, we were having dinner together, and suddenly she asked, "What do you think about us having an open relationship?" Initially, I thought she was pulling my legs, but after I saw her facial expression, I knew she was serious. There and then, I kicked against the idea of having an open relationship and told her I'd prefer to be single than have an open relationship. After that day, she never brought it up again, and I didn't think about it too. Even before our relationship started, I told Taylor that the thing I hated most in a relationship was cheating and a lying spouse. I would not forgive her if she ever cheated on me. I repeatedly said this because of the wounds I got from my previous relationship. I did not want a situation where I would give my heart to her, and she would shatter it by cheating on me. So this was the main reason I also ensured that our relationship would not be ruined for my end. Soon after Taylor moved out, I noticed some changes in her attitude. It began with her standing me up on our dates. We had the rule of going out every Friday evening, whether going for a walk in the park, eating at a food truck, or going to a fancy restaurant. We always went out every Friday. Because she wasn't living with me anymore, the deal was for her to come to my apartment and go out together. When it all started, she would keep me waiting for hours, and if I kept calling her, she would either not take my calls or ask us to reschedule the meeting because something urgent came up. Other times, she would cancel on me a couple of minutes before our meeting time and claimed she thought she sent me a text about the cancellation. When that happened, I should have been smart enough to know something was wrong. Instead, I bought all her excuses and encouraged her to work less, since most of her excuses had to do with her office. Even though it was annoying when she canceled almost all the time, I didn't take any to heart because I was the understanding boyfriend. Fast forward to a year after she moved out. Taylor and I became so distant, and despite living in the same town, it felt like we were in a long-distance relationship. She got promoted at her office, which even took more of her time. She started traveling a lot with her team, and we barely saw each other. Whenever she was back in town, things got so bad that we only relied on WhatsApp messages. Sometimes I would even send her messages, and she would not read them, but she'd continually make WhatsApp updates. When it got to the extent I could not take things anymore, I talked to her best friend to talk to her, but that didn't yield any results. Eventually, I confronted Taylor about our diminishing relationship, and she claimed work was taking much of her time. This excuse was funny because I knew her job wasn't meant to take her time like that. Even freelancers working with different clients simultaneously had more time than Taylor did. After the confrontation, Taylor promised to improve, and for 2 months she improved. She called more often, responded to my messages on time, and even updated me on her daily activities. She even started the weekend with me after a long time of not visiting my house. Her changes made me happy, and I was beginning to feel like we were back on track. I didn't want to sound like an enemy of progress, so I didn't ask her to find another job. Instead, we agreed on how to cope with her busy schedule. When this happened, I felt it was time to finally settle down. Taylor had never mentioned anything about getting married, and I believe she wanted me to bring up the topic on my own as the man. So I got an expensive engagement ring and planned to propose to her the next time she came over for the weekend. That weekend, when she came on Friday as she usually did, we went to a fancy restaurant to eat, and I took the ring with me. But something within me didn't allow me to do it. I could not propose to her there as I intended. Later that night, when we returned home, she fell asleep in the middle of our Friday movie night. I knew she was tired because she had been complaining of tiredness since she came over to my place. Out of love, I took her to the bedroom and tucked her in bed. When I returned to watch the movie we were watching, I noticed her phone was stuck in the old couch seat, and I pulled it out for her. While I was watching the movie, I thought about going through her phone, but I resisted it. During the early stage of our relationship, we used to have access to each other's phones because we had nothing to hide. So after contemplating for a while, I grabbed her phone, but it required fingerprint access. Sincerely, I was so lazy to return to the room to get her fingerprint, and I was trying as hard as possible to not be a nosy partner, but my curiosity had the best of me. When I finally had access to her phone through her fingerprints, I was shocked at what I saw. The very first place I went through was her call log. Apart from me and her best friend, I wanted to see if she was talking to someone else regularly. I didn't even go down her call log when I saw a contact saved, his daddy. It was really confusing because her dad was late, and she wasn't close to any of her older family members except her mom. I knew it wasn't my number either because my contact was saved with my name just above it. She had spoken to the daddy thrice during the day and a few minutes before arriving at my apartment that evening. Out of curiosity, I went through her WhatsApp to find the contact, and it was right there at the top of her messages. They were messages from Daddy she had not read yet because she had slept off. And when I opened the message, I realized they had been communicating the whole evening, even while we were at the restaurant. At first glance, I could tell that everything was wrong with their chat because of the emojis they used, so I decided to start from the beginning of their conversation. I was shocked to find out that Taylor and her boss were in a relationship. She was in another relationship while we were still together, and according to what I read, she told her boss she was in an open relationship with me until marriage. Their conversation dated way back, and I had goosebumps when I found out their relationship started around the same time she started asking questions about open relationships. Not just that, Taylor had an abortion for him once, and she was greatly compensated with money, and part of her compensation was the promotion she got. I was heartbroken and wished I could unread everything I saw. Another heart-racking part was that they mentioned me in some of their conversations and said all kinds of things about me. As I continued to read, I found out that it was her daddy's idea for her to start spending the weekend with me. She didn't even want to. He asked her to do it so I wouldn't get jealous that someone else was taking more of her time. After a lot of persuasion from him, she agreed. He also explained that he wanted her to get busy with me so he could also have time for his own family. He said his family was already complaining about him, and his wife was beginning to suspect that he was cheating on her, and he didn't want that. That was the most ridiculous thing I had read, and it hurt to find out that the calls, messages, and updates did not come genuinely from Taylor. That night, I sat on the couch unsure what to do. I thought of various ways of confronting and exposing her. At that moment, I thought of waking her with a bucket of cold water and yelling at her to explain everything. But I had anger issues, and I knew that idea would take me to jail for physical assault. So I went for a walk to clear my head and think properly. Before leaving the house, I exported their entire chat and sent it to myself, then marked the last messages as unread. After hours of walking with no destination, I came up with an idea similar to one I had read on Reddit. It was very difficult to pull this through, but I did it. The whole of the weekend, I kept my cool like nothing had happened, and before she left on Sunday evening the following week, I went to her office on a Tuesday. Since it was a corporate organization, I was asked to wait for her. While I waited, I handed out printed copies of the chat between Taylor and her boss to everyone I bumped into, including the receptionist. By the time Taylor came to see me, many people were holding the copies, and they were in shock. One of the men in her office immediately shouted, "I knew it! I knew it! I told you all something was going on. But you all said I talked too much." Taylor was so confused, and when she asked what was going on, I handed her a copy. As soon as she glanced through it, she flung the copy and tried to hold me accountable for what I had done. I knew the news would spread to HR, meaning she would no longer have a job. I loved how everyone looked at her as I walked out of the room, and as she ran after me. Just as I was about to enter my car and drive off, she ran, held my arm, and said she could explain. Shortly after I arrived home, she dashed out of a taxi without shoes and came to beg me. She kept banging on my house door, and because of this, the neighbors came out. It was so annoying, but I used the opportunity to throw out the few things she left at my place through the window and told her to go and be with her daddy. She still refused to leave, and her best friend arrived after an hour. Her best friend tried to speak to me from outside, but when I didn't respond, she packed all the stuff I threw and dragged Taylor inside her car. Since then, Taylor has been blowing my phone, and she has literally called all my friends to help her beg me to take her back. It's so brave of her to think we could ever be together after everything she's done. Now the deal is, despite everything she has done, I still love her, but I don't want to be with her. I've been trying to get over everything and move on, but she has been begging me to see and talk. I know it's stupid, but I have fixed a meeting with her for next week, and I'm confused about what to do. I can't get over the memories we shared in my apartment. Almost everything in it reminds me of her. My heart wants her, but being with her will be disastrous for me. Has anyone had a similar experience? I look forward to your comments. Date 1. Hello everyone. I'm glad to know others have been in the same situation. You are all right. Even if I agree to give Taylor another chance, she will cheat on me again. Women like her are never contented and will always have an excuse to cheat. A few days ago, Taylor and I met as we had scheduled, and immediately she saw me. She started crying and making a scene. I was even embarrassed because we were at the park, and I tried to pretend everything was fine. After we had settled, she told me she had never believed in monogamy from the onset, and she thought I was the kind of man that would love an open relationship as our relationship progressed. But when she suggested that we have an open relationship and I kicked against it, she was disappointed and decided to do her thing. It was funny for her to think I would never find out about her relationship. She even said she had no intentions of telling me and she intended to stop once I proposed to her or married. But nothing she said matched what I had read on her WhatsApp chat. When I asked her about the abortion, she started sobbing and apologizing. She said the pregnancy was mine, but she needed the promotion badly. So she lied to her boss and claimed she was pregnant for him because she knew he wouldn't let her keep it. In order to terminate the pregnancy, she negotiated a promotion and a huge amount of money to travel to another state for the process. At this point, I didn't even know if she was telling the truth, and I was really pained that she intended to fool me until we married. She, of all people, knew how I was protective of her body. She knew I would never want to share her with anybody. Yet she cheated on me with her boss. Someone here commented that I asked her what she wanted, and when I did, she said she wanted us to return to the way we used to be. I told her that was impossible because she had ruined her only chance, and no matter how much I loved her, we could never return to the way we used to be. Hearing this, she stood up immediately and made a scene. She started yelling at me, called me names, and said she had been putting up with me for years, so the least I could do was stick with her. She said she had been doing me favors, and it was her turn to collect. Then she walked out on me. By this time, I didn't even know she had been fired from work, and her boss had been fired along with her. She desperately wanted me to take her back, and that's why she tried everything possible. Also, I recently learned that her best friend knew she was having an affair, but she didn't say anything. They collaboratively played me for a fool and kept me in the dark. Just this evening, she called and said she'd be coming over tomorrow, and we are not breaking up until she says so. I have never seen her act this way, and it's terrifying. I told her not to come or I'll call the police. Whatever happens, I will make another update soon. Update 2. Hello everyone. Sorry it took me so long to make another update. Something happened, and I had to take care of that before making another update. So Taylor came over like she had said when we talked, and I officially told her it was over between us. She laughed. She said she had no regrets about cheating on me because she did everything for her career, and she saw no harm in it. This was how I knew she would keep cheating on me even after we married. I was so pissed, so I grabbed her arm and tried to throw her out of my apartment, but she pushed me violently. When I fell and hit my arm, she pulled a mega hammer out of her purse and started destroying things in the house. She destroyed the TV, my new laptop, and several other things. I called the police to report harassment, and just as she was tearing my house apart, the police drove in. Also, one of my neighbors had called the police when she heard the argument and loud crashes in the house. Even she could not believe that Taylor would act that way. Eventually, the police came in, and Taylor was arrested. Because I missed my step when she pushed me with force, I fell and broke my left arm. After healing my arm, I sued Taylor in court. The first reason was for a refund of the money I spent in the hospital, and the second was for her to pay for all the damages she made to my apartment. When we went to court, the judge asked her for pictures of the damages and my hospital bills, and everything amounted to almost $7,000. I could not even replace them because it was so expensive. After the judge was done talking with me, she turned to Taylor and asked her some questions. Overall, Taylor admitted to damaging things in my house, and she claimed she broke my laptop and destroyed other things as her payback for making her lose her job. The judge was furious and passed judgment against her. As I make this update, Taylor has been ordered to replace my laptop, fix the appliances she destroyed, and she has started refunding the money I spent at the hospital. Now she knows we can never be a thing again, and that has made her so miserable. Worse of all, she cannot get another job in our town because she has been blacklisted. I feel so fulfilled that she has to go through all of this misery and has gotten what she deserves. I say thank you to everyone that commented on my main post. I appreciate all of your comments. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Boyfriend thinks I cheated on him because I'm pregnant and a virgin at the same time. Yeah, pretty much exactly what the title says. I 16F am a virgin, so is my boyfriend, 16M. We're both young, and neither of us are ready for sex. Personally, it's never been high on my radar, and from what he's told me, he's the same way. That being said, we've been together for a couple of years now, so things have still happened. I'd rather not go into detail on that, but you can get the picture. Think third base, I guess. Anyways, a couple of days ago, I went to the doctor because I've been feeling really sick lately. I did a urine test and a finger prick, and my doctor told me I was pregnant. Of course, I laughed at first because I thought she was joking. But no, I'm really pregnant. I kind of fell silent. She started talking about things like ultrasounds, prenatal vitamins, etc. But I cut her off and told her that wasn't possible because I've never had sex. Therefore, have never conceived. She explained to me that very, very few women can get pregnant by outercourse, but it's still possible due to vaginal anatomy or something. I was, and still am, in complete and utter shock, so I kind of just left without any further explanation. I had driven myself because both of my parents work. I went straight to my boyfriend's house, and he was the first person I told. I hadn't even texted or called in advance because I was crying, completely distraught. I don't know why, but it didn't even cross my mind that he would think I cheated. I would never do something like that. I explained everything to him about how we'd never technically had sex, but we got really close and stuff can happen. He seemed pretty loose until I eventually told him I was pregnant, which is when he rightfully got pissed at me because, how the hell does that even happen without us having had sex? I tried so hard to explain myself and assure him that I'd never do that ever. I told him I'd take a DNA test or something to prove that, but he didn't believe a word and made me go home. The last thing he told me was, "I really trusted you." He looked like he was about to cry. Now I'm blocked on everything, so I can't text or call explaining myself. I'll respect his decision if he wants to break up, but I need him to know I was never with anyone else. It's been killing me knowing how hurt he must feel. Luckily, he hasn't told anyone that I'm pregnant because I haven't even told my own parents yet, but he has told people that I cheated on him, and now I'm losing friends and everything's gone to shit. This was already the worst, lowest point of my life, and it seems to be getting worse. I've basically locked myself in my room. I feel so depressed. I just need him to know. Date 1. I don't use Reddit much, so I'm not sure if I was supposed to make this into a separate post or just edit the original, but you can find the OG on my account. Hi guys. I'm so sorry it took a couple of days to update. Things have been moving wildly slow, and I didn't want to create a whole post for each small thing. I had to update so much. So much has happened. First off, I just want to specify a couple of things, misconceptions as well as some key aspects I didn't do a good enough job explaining. No, my boyfriend didn't yell at me or call me names. He was angry. You could tell, but it was an extremely short conversation, and he was primarily silent. That's the type of person he is, though. We've had very few arguments. He usually goes quiet when he's mad. I'm not saying it was the right way to act at all, but it was understandable, in my opinion, as the possibility of this happening was entirely new and confusing to both of us. He also never spread rumors about me, as some people were saying. I want to make that clear. He told his best friend, who told another one of their close friends, and you know how that works. Toxic gossip train. A few of our mutual friends who are generally closer to him / knew him first stopped talking to me. Again, that hurts a lot. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I know that if I thought someone had cheated on my friend, I would drop ties with him instantly. I understand things like this seem a lot worse to adults who maybe forget what it's like to be young and immature because, we're 16 and that's what we are. I think people also forget that I was making this post very shortly after all of this had happened. He came to my house the morning after I made the post and apologized, explaining that he'd done a lot of research and felt bad for accusing me. He said he still didn't know if he fully trusted me but wanted to at least help me while I went through this because, if anything, we've been best friends since we were small. He came over and we told my parents together, explaining that I didn't know if it was pregnancy or illness, and I needed to get further testing done. They seemed disappointed that I hadn't told them I was sexually active, but my mom said she was more disappointed in herself for not teaching me about reproductive health. They're being as supportive as they can. So that all happened. Flash forward to the next day, Monday, I went to the doctor to get more blood testing done. I wanted to update then, but I had to wait until I got the results back today. So far, after a full blood panel, all signs are still pointing to me being pregnant. The comments kinda got my hopes up, thinking it was most likely something else. My doctor explained that there was actually a slightly higher chance of me being pregnant than there was of a false positive because it's generally men with cancer who receive those. I don't know if he was going off of statistics or personal experience, though. I'm not sure since there's still not a positive way to know if it's really a pregnancy. So I have an ultrasound scheduled for this Thursday, as it was the earliest appointment available. That will be the only way to properly confirm. If the ultrasound confirms that I'm pregnant, then I'm also going to ask about getting DNA testing as a form of paternity test. Finally, I want to disclaim something. I've lied about a lot of things before. Everyone has, but pregnancy isn't something I would ever touch. There are so many women in this world that want kids but are unable to have them. And I can't imagine what it's like for them to constantly see other people getting pregnant. It feels disrespectful and borderline offensive to lie about something like that, and I would never. I also want to say that I completely understand the people, primarily the ones from TikTok, that think I cheated and this is all a cover-up story. I'm not going to try and win people over because your opinions genuinely don't matter to me. All I'm going to say is that this is a throwaway account that no one I know follows or has access to, so there would be no reason for any of that. If I actually wanted to convince people, then I would have posted it on my main, which my boyfriend and several other friends follow. Again, no one else but my boyfriend and my parents know about this at all, and I don't want them to. On a more positive note, I'd really like to thank all of the supportive comments and messages I got. They outweighed the negatives by far, and it's incredibly heartwarming and honestly surreal. I didn't expect this at all, but thank you truly. I had multiple people message me and offer to pay for things like paternity tests, abortion access, and general expenses, and with each and every message I cried. I can't believe there are such kind-hearted people in the world. But thank you. Me and my parents have this covered, but the offer is enough and I'm truly grateful for all of it. Hope to keep you guys posted. That's all for now. Update 2. There's not much to say. I got an ultrasound, and yes, confirmed the pregnancy. I was still holding on to a bit of hope that it might be something else, lol. My doctor gave me a referral to go straight to a blood work lab. I have no idea what they're actually called, so I and my boyfriend could do a prenatal paternity test. I'd never gotten a referral that quickly. Usually you have to wait at least a day, but she sent me over for an appointment just an hour after the ultrasound, which was really great. We did the blood test/saliva swab, and now we just have to wait about a week for the results. Most likely getting an abortion, but still figuring out the safest way to do that out of state. Thank you to the people who have been supportive. Update 3. Hey guys. Sorry it's been a while, but I had to wait for results. I tried my best to respond to comments and messages, even on the places this was reposted, but there were lots. Thank you very much to the polite people. The paternity test just came back, and yes, like I kept saying, it was his. The only way it wouldn't have been was if it had been SA, which there was an extremely low chance of, but even so, I'm very grateful that nothing happened to me. Me and my boyfriend, as some people had suggested, we found a great program that several of you had recommended to me called Plan C. They helped provide women in no-abortion states with abortion pills. It was very mentally difficult for me to go through with, but just this morning the pills came, and we used a telehealth doctor to help. I now officially had an abortion. Woohoo! I was very on the fence about it, and honestly I'm not doing too well now, but I know it was the right choice. Now to answer some questions. No, I'm not a bot. I'm also not old. I write well because I want to be an author. Writing has interested me since I was in elementary school, and it's something I worked very hard at. I took AP Lang last year, and I'm taking AP Lit this upcoming year, so I'm well educated in that subject. Obviously, not so well educated in sex, lol. I think some of you are wildly underestimating how articulate teens can be. We're not entirely clueless. Also, I got the paternity test because I could. Some people said it was strange to get one even though I was most likely getting an abortion, but I don't think so. Personally, I believe it was very necessary, and honestly, it wasn't as expensive as I thought it would be. My parents covered it. No, my boyfriend's parents never found out about any of this, and we don't ever want them to. They're not very good/stable people, and my boyfriend plans on going no contact pretty much as soon as he turns 18. Also, we're both 17 now. Anyways, thank you all for the support on this journey. It's been rough, but I know this all helps so much. Even now, I'm still getting DMs of people offering to help both financially and mentally, and genuinely, that's amazing. I'll still be responding to comments if there are any, but when it comes to posting, goodbye. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Stepdad hated me very much, but it turns out that my mom lied to him and told him I said that his dying mother was a useless burden, just to stop her from moving in with us. So, I am a 16-year-old guy, and I am in high school right now. My mom got married to my stepdad, Eddie, 2 years ago. My mom is 40, and he is 42 years old. My parents never got married. I was actually the result of a really short fling after college that they thought would end in a couple of months. But then my mom got pregnant and she did not want to terminate it, so she had me. My dad also wanted to be a part of my life, so they have shared custody of me, and I switch homes every month. I spend the year alternatively with my mother and my father, splitting my time equally between them. I love my parents, and I know that both of them have made quite a number of sacrifices for me in order to be close to me. The first and biggest one is that they have had to live in the same city for years, so I don't find the commute between the two houses too difficult to deal with. I did not know about it earlier, but now I know that both my parents have had to give up on multiple opportunities to rise in their careers just because they had to remain in the same city and live close to each other, all for my sake. My mom apparently also had to reject several men who were head over heels in love with her whenever the child because she wanted to focus on raising me instead of getting married and having to deal with having a husband and balancing her work life and her personal life, all that jazz. I know these things now thanks to Eddie indirectly because he is not exactly the best stepfather that one could ask for, and my mother has had to tell me all of this in order to make me accept him because she thinks that if she could make so many sacrifices for my sake, I should be able to return the favor at least a little bit and accept Eddie. I don't know how that works because I did not ask her to make these sacrifices for me. She could have easily just terminated the pregnancy or just let my father take over raising me entirely. But anyway, I never argued with her about any of this because I love her, and I want her to be happy, so I was ready to accept Eddie, even though he was not a very nice guy. And by not a nice guy, I don't mean that he is mean to me in any way whatsoever. I just mean that he doesn't like me, and he doesn't bother to hide it. I don't know what kind of 42-year-old has issues with a 16-year-old guy, but he definitely does. I don't know why he doesn't like me because I never did anything to piss him off, and as a matter of fact, I've always tried to be nice to him because that's how my family has raised me, to be nice to everybody, even when they show you that they don't like you. He never speaks to me rudely and never makes comments about me, and the reason behind it is that he doesn't speak to me at all. He pretends like I don't exist in the family. This has been going on for the past 3 years. I literally have no idea what I ever did to piss him off. But one day he just decided that he was not going to speak to me and he was going to start acting like I was not there at all. It is the weirdest thing in the world, and I'm really not used to this kind of treatment. It's like he's giving me the cold shoulder for something, but I don't know what it is, so I can't even fix my behavior because I don't even know what his problem with me is. My mother says that that's just the way he is. He does not have a problem with me, but he doesn't necessarily like me either. However, I feel like if you don't like somebody, there should at least be a reason for it, especially when you're 42 and the other person is literally just 16. I guess it has something to do with the dynamics of me being my mother's first child or whatever. I don't even know. But the bottom line is that he does not like me, and he has made it very obvious. Earlier, we used to get on okay. In the first couple of times that he came home, he would interact with me and ask me all sorts of questions about my life, and I would be very polite and answer him. But after one visit, he just decided that he was not going to speak to me. It was very random, and I did not understand why he did that at the time. I did not question it because I thought maybe he had just forgotten to say hi to me or whatever. But then it happened so many times it became hard to ignore. So I even asked my mother if I had done something to make him angry because he was acting like I was not there in the house, and he would turn his face away every time I entered the living room or any room that he was in. And she did not tell me anything about it. She just said that he was trying to wrap his head around the fact that now he would have to deal with me being there all the time, and maybe he was just not used to it because before this he had only dated women who did not have kids. I found that hard to believe because he himself had 2 kids. He had 2 sons, one was 15 and the other was 12. Their mother had passed away in an accident after the younger sibling was born. Also, it was not true that I would be there all the time because, as I had mentioned above, I used to go to my dad's house to live with him every other month. But anyway, a few months passed that way, and eventually I just accepted the fact that this was how he was, and he was not going to speak to me anymore. After a year of being in a relationship, he proposed to my mother, and they got married a few months later. After their marriage, Eddie moved into the house with his kids. Before that, I had only met his children a couple of times, and even they had been talked by their father not to speak to me. It was just so crazy, and I don't even know how I dealt with that for so long. For years, as a matter of fact. Before getting married, Eddie and my mother used to live separately because Eddie's mother was really sick and she used to live with them. But after they got married, he decided to move her in with his sister so she would be able to take care of her, and he moved in with my mom into our house with his children. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this, but it's really not easy to live in the same house with a bunch of people who won't talk to you and pretend that you don't even exist. But I had to put up with that, and it made me feel really bad because I felt like I was a criminal of some sort, judging by the way that they treated me. And the worst part was that I never got to find out what I did wrong in the first place. I still have no idea, but at least I'm not living with him anymore, so it doesn't matter anyway. Years passed, and their behavior did not change even though I got used to it. I was already used to Eddie not speaking to me whenever he would come over to visit my mother, which was quite frequent. And after they got married, I got used to him and his kids living in the same house with me and not speaking to me. Every time I would go to my mother's place, I would have to prepare myself mentally to only talk to my mother for the next couple of weeks. She was the only person who would speak to me in that house, and everybody else pretended like I was not there, like I was invisible. It was hurtful, but I did want to spend time with my mother, so I had to deal with it because I knew that she was not going to talk to Eddie about it. Trust me, I had tried to convince her innumerable times to talk to him about it and get to the bottom of this or at least try to solve it, but she told me that she had already spoken to him about it, and there were a couple of personal reasons that she could not disclose to me, which is why he refused to acknowledge my existence in the house, and she could not do anything about it because she understood where he was coming from, and she also understood why I felt bad about it, but I would just have to suck it up and deal with it. If I tried to argue with her and stand up for myself, she would get all emotional and tell me that I was being ungrateful because I was overlooking the fact that she had made so many sacrifices for me, so I could surely just give Eddie a pass for behaving with me the way that he did and just deal with it for her sake. I wanted to fight with her, but I did not want to hurt her feelings. I never even told my father about any of this because I knew that if he got to find out about it, he would be very upset and would definitely drag my mother for this. They were very different people and had very different ideas on how to bring me up, so they kept having little arguments and fights. But I knew that something this huge would probably lead to my father filing for full custody or something extreme. I did not want to stir up drama, so I avoided telling him at all and pretended that everything was fine with my mother and her new family. Eddie and my mother had been together for 1 year before they got married, and it has been 2 years since they have been living together, so I have been putting up with this sort of behavior for 3 years now, and I have been pushed to my limit and stretched very thin recently. What happened was what really pushed me off the edge, and I decided that I was no longer going to put up with it. Last month, I was supposed to be spending the month at my mother's house, and as usual, Eddie and his kids had been ignoring me. I was already going through a rough patch because I had been fighting with a couple of my friends from school, and I was really not in the right headspace at the time. So about 2 weeks ago, when I woke up one morning and I realized that the house was absolutely empty, I started losing my mind over it. Even up until the night before, everything had been normal, or as normal as it gets in my mother's house. They had been all talking to each other and ignoring me, but there was no mention of them going anywhere at the time. But when I woke up the next morning, I saw that the house was empty, and I immediately called my mother up to ask about it. I had no idea where they were, but thankfully my mother did answer the call. When I asked her what they were playing at, she told me that she, Eddie, and the kids were going out on a little trip for the week and asked me to stay in the house and take care of it. I'm on summer break right now, so I don't have school and I don't really have to go anywhere, but I don't think it's appropriate to leave me at home all by myself and expect me to act like a watchdog. I was not on board with that plan, and I told my mother as much, that I was not ready to stay at home all day and watch the house. If she wanted something like that, she probably should have just amped up the security around her house instead of tricking me into staying at home. I was also just mostly upset that they had not even told me about their plan to go out on a road trip and left me at home all by myself. They didn't even have the courtesy of letting me know about it beforehand so I could decide for myself if I wanted to do it or not. I probably just would have said yes because, as a high school guy, there is literally nothing more that we want than an empty house all to ourselves. I probably would have invited a couple of my friends over and lived it up for a few days, but I was so pissed off that I didn't even feel like doing that because my mother was treating me like crap, and it made me feel really bad. I was also fighting with my friends, so I did not really have anybody to invite at the time, and I was just going through an overall bad time. And I told my mother that she needed to apologize to me for doing this, and I could understand that Eddie did not like talking to me, but the bare minimum that they could do was at least tell me that they were going out somewhere before they left. It was not very nice to just wake up one morning and realize that you were all alone. And she told me that I was making a big deal out of this and that I needed to get over it. She did not even wait for me to respond. She just hung up the call. When I tried to call her back, she did not accept it and texted me back saying that she was trying to enjoy her trip and that she would talk to me once she was at the hotel. I was so upset about everything that I decided to leave. I knew that it would mean that the house would be completely empty, but I didn't care. I had tried to call my mother after that to let her know that I was leaving, but she did not answer my call, and everything went straight to voicemail. So I locked up the house and kept the keys of the house under a potted plant, which my mother usually does when she leaves, and then I went over to my dad's place to live with him. Once I got there, he was actually surprised to see me back so early because he had expected me to return after 1 week since I was supposed to be living with my mother until the end of the month. But I had had enough, so I just came back to him, and I ended up telling him everything that had been going on. I told him all about Eddie and his ridiculous behavior around me and how he had even trained his kids not to talk to me. I felt like I had done something wrong, but I didn't even know what, and it was getting on my nerves. Then I told him how my mother did not even want to talk to him about this and just let everything go on the way that it was, no matter how much it hurt me. Her excuse for that was that she believed that he had his personal reasons, and they were valid, but she was not even willing to tell me what those reasons were so I would be able to make sense of what was going on around me. I had put up with this for long enough, just for my mother's sake. I wanted her to be happy, and she kept reminding me that she had made so many sacrifices for me in her life, so I could do this for her. But this was getting way too much to take. I was not going to tolerate it anymore, and I was done. I had to tell my father about it because he deserved to know what my mother was putting me through, and maybe he would be able to do something about the situation because I was just so sick and tired of being treated like this. Even when I have not done anything to piss anyone off, and I have always tried my best to be kind and compassionate towards everybody. Then I told him about how my mother had left me at home alone without even telling me that she and her husband and his kids were going out, and she just expected me to agree to take care of the house and make sure that everything was in its place and live on my own for the next week just because she wanted to take a trip. That was not even my biggest problem. My problem with that was she did not even think that it was important to tell me about it, and when I tried to talk to her, she just kept hanging up and declining my calls like I was not even important to her. She had really crossed a line, and I couldn't put up with this anymore. After I was done telling my father about all of this, I started crying because I didn't realize just how much all of this had been weighing on me for the past couple of years. I did have a normal relationship with my mother before that, but after she got together with Eddie, everything changed, and nothing was the same anymore. I felt like I was insignificant to her, and it was very difficult for me to accept. After venting to my father about all of this, he just said one thing to me, and that was that he was going to take care of everything for me now. He was obviously very upset, but whatever that he had to say to my mother, he did not say any of it to me. He just told me that he was really glad that I had shared this with him, and now it was all off my chest. He told me that I was going to be living with him, and if I wanted to go back to my mother, that was my choice, but he would not suggest doing that to me. Anyway, I've been living with him, and I did not try to call my mother after that day, and the funny part was that she didn't try to call me either. The least that she could have done was try to keep in touch with her son, whom she had left at home all on his own while she traveled with her new family. I was really emotionally hurt by what she was doing, but after speaking to my father, I was feeling considerably lighter, and I had decided that I was not going to let this bother me. For about 5 days we had no contact, and then when she finally called me, I thought it was going to be to check up on me, but when I answered the call, she was yelling at me at the top of her lungs. It took me a few seconds to realize that she was yelling at me because I had left the house and they had been robbed. Apparently, a lot of stuff that they had left in the house was now gone, including their television and a couple of other expensive items. For some reason, she was blaming me for all of it. I don't know why she was doing it because I had tried to call her and inform her that I was leaving and I was going to stay with my father. After she had stopped yelling, I told her that I was not happy about the way she had been treating me, and I had tried to contact her several times after she had hung up, but she kept declining my calls. So she told me that I could have texted her, and as valid as her point was, I told her that I didn't do it on purpose because I was mad. I thought it was very obvious, and I had made it very clear to her that I was upset, so she should not have expected me to stay back in the first place. We got into a massive fight about it because she believed that I should have stayed at home, no matter how angry or upset I was, because this was a matter of safety, and she had been trusting me and counting on me. But I did not tell her to do that. In fact, I had tried my very best to let her know that I was leaving and I did not want to stay at home alone, but she disregarded all of my calls. So now she had to pay the price of it. These were the consequences of her actions, not mine. I found it very ridiculous that they were trying to blame this all on me, including Eddie, the first time that he spoke to me in the last couple of years, and it was only to yell at me and blame me for my carelessness. And he said a couple of other very confusing things as well, like he had always known that I would be the cause of ruin for them. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean because we don't even interact. I don't know how he came to that conclusion without even speaking to me. Anyway, my parents are now fighting because my dad thinks that this is my mom's fault and so do I, but she thinks that this is my fault, and now my mother is demanding that my father pay her for the damages since she thinks that if he is defending me for doing this, he should be ready to pay the price for it. I don't understand what to do now, and she will only drop it if I at least apologize to her and her family. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want her to keep bothering my father either. I left my mother's house unoccupied to go live with my father because she and my stepdad left me home alone to go on a trip with his family without even bothering to inform me. Update 1. So it has been 2 weeks since the incident, and a lot of things have come to light since then. First of all, I was finally able to figure out why Eddie hated me so much. Apparently, as it turns out, when they had first started dating, Eddie had asked my mother if he could bring his mother over to live with them. My mom had said no because she was not comfortable with the idea of them moving in together so soon and definitely not okay with the idea of her mother-in-law, who was ailing, to come live with her. She thought that it would be too much work for her and was not up for it. Even though Eddie had made it very clear that she had a full-time nurse to look after her, and she just needed people to be around for her emotional needs. My mother was already not ready to move in with Eddie and be together, and she did not want the extra baggage of having her mother-in-law live with her. But instead of being upfront with him, she pinned it all on to me. This was about 3 months into their relationship. We were getting pretty serious about each other at that point, even though I think it was way too soon for them. But anyway, that's my mother's choice, and I don't want to comment on that. She had basically lied to Eddie and told him that she would be okay with him moving in with her and bringing his mom and kids along to live with us. But she was not sure if it was such a good idea because of me. She had made me sound like some juvenile delinquent and told him that she had dated a couple of men in the past, but they had all been driven away because of me. Apparently, I terrorized her boyfriend because I wanted to protect her and keep everybody away since I still believed that I could reunite my parents, and she did not want to break my heart. She also did not want Eddie's mother to suffer because of me because she had told him that I had a lot of comments to make about his family. She had told Eddie that I had referred to his mother as a useless burden on the family, and I had told her that if she moved in with us, then I would make sure that she suffered for it. Something that I would never say because that's just not me, and I know how insensitive it is. And apparently, I had referred to his kids as little evil goblins who were going to ruin our family. Obviously, after that, he had stopped interacting with me at all because he did not want anything to do with me. He had actually believed my mother, even though I had always acted very normally around him, and he had no reason to believe her. I found out about it a couple of days ago since Eddie had been pushing my mother to disown me and cut all ties with me because of what I had done and thought that it was about time. But she did not want to do that, so she finally had to come clean to him. And now they are living separately because Eddie could not believe that he had been treating me so badly over a bunch of lies that my mother had fed him just because she was too afraid to tell him the truth, that it was she who was against having his sick mother live with them and not me. In that email, he even mentioned that he would not have had an issue if my mother had been honest with him and told him that she did not have the bandwidth to deal with a sick person in the house, and he would have just spoken to his sister and made sure that they took turns taking care of their mom. But she chose to lie to him and made up such a horrible story about me that he believed and kept mistreating me. He sent me an email to apologize to me for everything that he had put me through and hoped that I would forgive him. I have not responded to it yet because I don't know how to feel about any of this right now, and I just want to keep my head clear and not think about any of this at the moment. But anyway, that's why he had been mistreating me for so long, and my mother had been allowing it. In fact, it had been working out in her favor perfectly, and she had been feeding him all sorts of lies about how I kept getting in trouble at school, and he never even questioned it because he trusted her blindly. We never spoke, so he never found out that I was actually quite a normal guy, and that kept my mother's cover from getting blown. She is one twisted lady. I have to say that my father is now filing for full custody after we got to know all of this, and my mother is devastated because she claims that she loved us and wanted us to be a happy family together. But I'm sorry, you can't have a happy family on your own terms and ruin everybody else's life. Update 2. So apparently, not only is my dad filing for full custody, but Eddie is also filing for a divorce. I found out because my mother sent my dad a bunch of messages begging him to talk to Eddie and fix this because she can't live without all of us. I don't know how she even expects us to listen to her after everything that she did. She made sure that I was treated badly and did not have a problem with it for so many years, knowing that she had been lying through her teeth about me to her husband. I would pray that no person ever has to suffer something like this at the hands of their own mother. I kept wondering about what I did wrong and why I was being hated by her husband and his family for no reason. All this way, she just cared about herself and nothing else. I have blocked her everywhere, and I don't want to speak to her ever again. I had been putting up with a lot of crap for the past few years just because I loved her, and I wanted her to be happy. Clearly, she did not feel the same way about her own son and only cared about her own happiness. so that makes the two of us. Both of us put her happiness first. Well, not anymore. Update 3. It's official. Eddie has filed for a divorce. That is literally all that people are talking about right now. My family and a couple of common friends that my parents had. My mother is dealing with this in a very weird way by posting sad quotes on social media, which I've been receiving screenshots of from my cousins. I don't know what she expects, but that's definitely not going to help. She dug her grave. Now she has to lie in it. Update 4. So my dad has full custody of me now. It has been a couple of months and my mother put up a good fight, but unfortunately, the divorce and everything made it super complicated for her. And we had all the proof of what she had put me through, so she really didn't stand a chance. But her lawyer managed to stretch the case out for a couple of months at the very least. Anyway, I don't have to visit my mother now if I don't want to because my dad is the custodial parent. She does get visitation rights, but I don't know what the point of that is since I don't even want to talk to her anymore. I am happy with my father, and life is going pretty well. I have even made up with my friends, and I'm looking forward to moving on. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I fell for my married massage client, who lied about being divorced. I caught him cheating years later, teamed up with his actual ex-wife and ruined his life. Now he's jobless and homeless. My STBX, 40M, and I, 32F, first started seeing each other just over 5 years ago. I'll be referring to him as Don, just for privacy's sake. Don came in as one of my massage clients, and we just sort of hit it off right away. I had just gotten out of a previous relationship. I had lost a bit of weight. I just got back from a solo trip to South America and was feeling flirty and fun. Don was coming in to get a massage every 2 months at the time. He was a police officer who had just transferred from a smaller town to the big city. He said he was recently divorced and it had been rough, and he asked for the transfer for some space from his ex-wife, Miranda, and her family. He said he grew up in the small town, so everybody knew everybody, and it wasn't too popular for a man like himself to be walking away from his wife, who was a stay-at-home mom to his 2 kids, 14F and 11M. He said she was incredibly manipulative and abusive towards him for years. They had been together since they were 14, and it was a bit taboo for a man to be talking about how his wife was abusing him, so nobody had really believed him, and his parents were shaming him a bit for abandoning her. Anyways, he was in rough shape, and we had bonded over our recently failed relationships because I, too, was in a pretty manipulative and emotionally abusive relationship. On the 3rd appointment, he built up the nerve to ask me out to this botanical garden just outside of the city. He ended up picking me up at my place in his ghost car police cruiser, and he was showing off and trying to be cute by putting the lights on. We sped through the streets and down the highways until we got to the gardens. It was thrilling and hot at the time, I will admit. Anyways, he ended up having a really good time, and he asked me out on another date. We went on a few more dates after that in the span of 2 months, and at the end of those 2 months, I don't hear from him for a while. I'm just thinking he lost interest, so I just go on my merry way. Then another month goes by, and he calls me up and apologizes for not getting to me sooner. He feels terrible and tells me he has to tell me something. I say, oh, here we go, and here, in my mind, I'm thinking he's just going to tell me being in a relationship so soon isn't going well for him, and he jumped in too soon and all of that BS. I'm expecting him to say he's not interested in seeing me anymore. Well, I agree to see him, and he picks me up and takes me to this coffee shop by my house and drops this bomb that he's still married. I say, why did you lie? He said he's in a bad relationship. Everything he said about her being abusive is true. I just haven't actually moved out of the house yet because I'm too afraid, and I don't want to lose my kids. Well, I get up to leave and he begs me to stay. He says he's sorry for lying, but he just hasn't ever felt this way before for someone. Blah, blah, blah. So I entertain him and I stay and hear him out. I feel ashamed to say this, but I actually believed everything he was telling me at the time because I had experienced such bad emotional abuse from my previous boyfriend that he just left me in a really bad place. I could empathize with everything he was saying because I had experienced it too. Anyways, blah blah, I ended up staying with him, but I said only if he moves out of the house he's in because he was still living with his wife at the time. He starts the separation process. Don agrees. Within that same week, he tells his wife he's leaving her. He takes his trailer and parks it at a buddy's property. Long story short, they go through the separation process. Where I'm from, you have to be separated for at least a year in order to start the divorce process. So within that year, Don goes from staying in his park trailer, and then winter comes and he moves in with me. His daughter goes to see him, and he doesn't tell his friends or family about me because he doesn't want anybody catching on to the fact that he was still married when we started dating. Anyways, fast forward a year and he files for divorce, but she has a fit and claims that she's scared of him and what he's capable of, and something along the lines of she's scared of what he'll do to himself. She files a restraining order against him so he can't see his kids or go by the house, and because he's a police officer, there's an investigation, and they take his gun away and he has to work behind a desk for some time before the investigation is complete. His daughter is still NC with him, too. By now, his mom and dad, a few friends, and his ex and kids know that he's seeing me, but they think we've just been seeing each other for a few months. Fast forward about 6 months, and the restraining order is lifted, and the investigation is complete, and he's back to active duty. He's been deployed to a different province for work and training quite a few times as well, so he's been gone quite a lot and away from home. I don't think anything of it. He's always talking to me and checking in and gives me a detailed schedule of what his days look like. Yeah, I might have even Googled a conference or two and called the hotels he's claimed to be at, making sure that he's actually staying where he says he's staying and that the conferences actually existed. Every time I had a doubt, I always double-checked and everything checked out. A few years go by. We end up buying our own place together, and it's so beautiful, literally the house of my dreams. It's on about 4 acres of land and is right off of a lake. He tells me that the divorce is finalized. He proposes to me. We're engaged. His son comes over every second weekend and spends the weekend with us. Everything feels good, we're happy. Well, I go to start planning a wedding and book appointments to see venues, but he becomes distant and uninterested. He keeps saying there's no rush, and I say, I know there's not, but I just want to go and see so we can start making some goals so we know what we want when the time comes, or just get little bits done here and there. He obliges, but when we go to see the venues and people are asking when we're thinking of getting married, we can't give them an answer. He says there's no rush. We don't have a date yet. Then he says, oh, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, and I say, what? 2 to 3 years? And then we start arguing in front of this woman who's showing us around this beautiful hall. She sort of gets the hint that I want to speak to Don privately and ends up giving us some space. By this point, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, what do you mean by 2 to 3 years? And Don said, I don't want to rush into things after just getting divorced. It looks bad. And I'm like, well, why did you propose to me? And he said, because I love you. I said, then what are we waiting for? Then he comes out and says he hasn't been totally truthful to me. I say, what the hell does that mean? And then he says that he's not officially divorced yet. And I say, I thought you took care of that. He says there was something wrong with the paperwork, and she didn't sign it. And I said, so you're technically still married, and yet you proposed to me? And he said, well, I proposed because I signed the papers and sent them off to my lawyer, thinking that she wouldn't have a problem with them and sign them. She's just being a bitch about it and is giving me a hard time because she doesn't want me to be happy. I call BS and I say, this engagement is called off. And he says, whoa, wait, he said, I still want to be with you. I want to marry you. And I'm like, I don't want to marry someone who's lying to me. You've lied to me once before, and I thought we were over that. Anyways, long story short, I ended up telling him to pack his things and stay at a buddy's place for a while until I go over some things. He's gone for 2 weeks, and in that time we do some talking, and he said he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want me to leave him, and he's so sorry, and it's not that he doesn't want to be with me. He said he's just afraid of confrontation. He says all these things, and he's like, let's go to counseling together. I'm serious about this. I'm serious about you, blah, blah, blah. I didn't just call it all off at this point, but I agreed to couples counseling, but I still call off the engagement until he's officially divorced. He moves back in, and we go to counseling and private therapy. 8 months go by, and he is officially divorced. I see it for myself. The next day, we go camping to celebrate, and he takes me up into some hills through this path and down by a waterfall where he proposes again. Stupid me says yes, but at this point, I feel like we've made some progress in our relationship. His daughter has also started talking to him again, so we're feeling pretty relieved. I chalk up his weird behavior and off days before that to the fact that his daughter hadn't been talking to him, and they were pretty close before he separated from his Miranda. Well, in this time, he's been deployed a few more times and has been away from home for weeks at a time. I started running my own clinic, and it's been crazy hectic. I've been distracted with that. One time he comes home from deployment. He tells me he has to take a colleague of his out of province because he can't drive on the medication he's on. I say, why can't he take a bus or a plane? And he says that the guy has a fear of flying and he doesn't want to pass out on the bus with the meds he's on. Well, my gut's telling me something's off, and I try to tell him that I don't want him going, and it's a back and forth, but he says that since he's his superior, he feels like he can't say no. So I'm like, okay, I guess. So he leaves on a Sunday and he's back on a Tuesday. Then when he's back, he's sort of distant, and I see him on his phone outside while he's doing yard work, and he's smiling and laughing and whatever. And when I ask who he was talking to, he says it's the colleague of his who he drove out of province. Okay. Then about 2 weeks go by and it's my cousin's wedding and we're at the reception. He's had a few drinks and then a random person comes up, a friend of my cousin's, and she's looking for an empty chair. And then he straight up tells her that she can sit on his lap and tries to grab her, and I'm sitting right there next to him in disbelief. My other cousin looks at me and she's like, and she sort of tries to pretend it didn't just happen. And the chick he told to sit on his lap sort of just laughs awkwardly and walks away. Then I go to the washroom and I'm completely pissed off. And by the time I come back, he's dancing with some other woman. I see my brother there and ask him to drive me home. While I'm home, I go onto his iPad because I'm curious to see if he's connected his messages to his iPad. Sure as heck, there they are. It's under some fake name, Mark, and there's flirting back and forth, sexting, nude pics and videos exchanged, you name it. And the days he said he had to drive a colleague, you guessed it, that colleague was in fact Mark, who is in fact a woman with a blonde pixie cut who I'll call Liz. He spent the days with her, and on the days he's been deployed, he's come back a day earlier than he told me he was and had gone straight to her house to hook up, and he'd drive to our home the next day pretending that he just got in from wherever he was. I take screenshots of everything and I send them to myself, then I send them to him and tell him to not come home. I tell him we're totally done. I don't get a response right away. He's probably passed out somewhere or hooking up with someone. I've also locked the doors to the house, and I know he can't get in because I took the keys home with me in my purse, and we don't keep a spare outside anywhere. My brother had picked us up. Anyways, the next day, I wake up to text messages and voicemails in the morning saying he's sorry, all that jazz. I block him. Then around noon, I get a call from my cousin, and she's saying that Don is sitting in the hotel lobby, and he is saying I left him there without a way to get home. And I said he should ask the woman he was dancing with for a ride home. And she said, what? And I said, he's not allowed home, and she got the hint. I then get a call from Don's brother saying that he's got to come over and pick up some stuff for Don. And I said, I'll have all of his packed and outside on the driveway. His brother drives up the driveway and parks outside the house. And I can see Don come out in the clothes he was wearing at the wedding. And he comes up to the front door and tries the door, but it's not open. Then he goes around the back and tries that, but it's also locked. Then I watch him try the windows to see if maybe we left any unlocked. No luck. He starts yelling my name, and I'm watching his brother pack his stuff into the back of his truck. He starts yelling at me, saying that he's sorry and he's saying that I can't keep him out of his own house. Blah, blah. Then after about 15 minutes, they both leave. A few days go by, and I get a text from Miranda asking what happened with Don. He was supposed to pick up his son from hockey practice but didn't show up, and she can't get a hold of him. She's checking to make sure he's alive. Well, I text back and say, I wish he were dead, and she says, whoa, hope all is okay. Then I do something that I've never done before, and I call her. I tell her that I'm so sorry that I ruined her marriage and that I broke the girl code, and I literally told her everything. I said I dated her husband behind her back, and I told her what he told me about her, everything. She honestly took it surprisingly well. She said she figured that he was cheating on her. She said he was never home, and she said that her daughter caught him texting another woman. May or may not have been me, and she asked him about it, and he totally denied it and gaslit her and made her think that she was crazy. And then that's where the NC came about. Then she admitted that she got a restraining order because she was legitimately afraid of him because she wanted to spill the beans to their family and friends about what a scumbag he was. But he threatened to kill her. Then he threatened her again and basically made her life a living hell with stalking and such until she lifted the restraining order. This whole time, I told her that he was telling me that he was afraid of her and that she was the abusive one. She said it was totally the other way around. She said he manipulated her enough that she was afraid to talk to anyone, and she was super depressed. She said there were so many times that she wanted to just call me and tell me everything, but that she was afraid I would think she were crazy and wouldn't believe her. Don told her that if he ever found out that she reached out to me that he'd get her arrested and take the kids away from her. So yeah, I get it. Well, after talking a bit more, I said that I was going to pick her up the next day and that we'd go and file a report against him. She wasn't sure at first, but I talked her into it, and I said that she wasn't alone and that I'd have her back and that we're in this together. So we filed a report. They opened up an investigation. I got word that he was suspended with pay due to domestic violence. A few months went by and I got a call from Miranda, and she said that he had been fired and she had a restraining order placed on him to protect her and the kids. I ended up getting one, too, because we didn't know what he was capable of. He's currently living in his trailer on his buddy's property, homeless and jobless. He'll never be in the police force again and has been disowned by his parents, and his kids won't talk to him. He's been branded abusive and a cheater, and his community hates him. His buddy had come by to pick up the rest of his stuff, even though a lot of the furniture and house goods were mine. He picked up a chair, some outdoor things, a gun safe, and little things here and there. Miranda and I have hung out quite a lot during this whole process, and we've become actually really good friends. I still see the kids, and his daughter is still iffy about me, but she's warming up to me, even though I totally understand where she's coming from. I bought out the rest of the house, and it's officially all mine. I got that snake out of my hair, and I still enjoy a nice cup of coffee on my deck in the morning overlooking the lake. Life is good. Now on to the next story. Story 9. I caught my wife cheating on me with her sister's husband. So I checked her phone, gathered evidence, and exposed them in front of the whole family. Now they're both divorced and disowned. I, 32 male, was married to my ex-wife, 28 female, for 2 years. It still shocks me that after all the promises my ex-wife made to me, she stooped so low and cheated on me. My wife and I first met at my cousin's college graduation ceremony. She had also come to attend her brother's graduation, and we got along well. After the ceremony, she gave me her number at my request, but it took me weeks for her to finally take my calls. After weeks of her not taking my calls, I coincidentally bumped into her one day, and she apologized for not taking my calls and offered that we should go to the movies together. Going to the movies was our first date, and from there multiple dates followed, and we ended up marrying after a year of dating. In the beginning, marrying my wife brought me so much happiness. She ticked all my boxes, and everything was smooth between us. She was great in bed, a good cook, and she took good care of me. We were always so happy together, and I loved what we shared. While my wife worked as a data entry clerk, I worked as a heavy machine technician, and what we earned was enough to take care of us. Aside from being happy that I married my wife, I was also glad she had a great family. I grew up with my dad, and he raised me as a single parent. The only cousin I had was my dad's younger sister's daughter. One of the things I always looked forward to was a family of love, and that's what my wife had. She had 2 brothers and 1 sister plus her parents. Her family were so close to each other, and since we all lived in the same town, we used to hang out once every month as a family unit. Whenever we had a picnic, family dinner, or a gathering, all of my wife's siblings would come with their spouses, and this was how I got close to one of her brothers-in-law, my wife's sister's husband. We were around the same age, which allowed us to bond well. Most times, if my wife and her sister were hanging out or going out of town for the wedding of a mutual friend or an extended family member, her brother-in-law and I would go out for a couple of drinks or watch football together. As time passed, he wasn't just my favorite brother-in-law. We became very good friends. Months after my wife and I clocked a year together, I noticed she was getting closer to her sister's husband. It's not like there was anything wrong with being close to her sister's husband, but I felt something was different with their relationship, and some other changes followed. For example, if we went for a family dinner, my wife would talk to everybody except her brother-in-law, which was very unlike her. And if her brother-in-law and I were hanging out and I mentioned my wife in our conversation, he would avoid the topic and chip in something else regarding their closeness. If we all went somewhere, maybe the park or shopping mall, My wife would prefer to hang with her sister and husband than with me. If we sat at a table to eat together, she would prefer to sit next to him and leave me alone wherever I was. I quietly watched her for months to ensure my head was not messing with me. Around the same time I noticed all these changes, my wife's attitude towards me changed. 2. It got so bad that we could not converse without her mentioning her brother-in-law's name. Our intimacy dropped, too, and she barely allowed me to touch her. Whenever I tried, she'd complain about being tired or not being in the mood. Sometimes she'd even say she was seeing her monthly flow, even when I knew she wasn't. Before I suspected something was going on between her and her brother-in-law, my wife did not care about her looks whenever we wanted to hang out as a family unit, but she suddenly became so concerned. She'd wash and curl her hair in advance, pick out a dress that would expose her thighs and cleavages, and apply makeup. It became evident that she was trying to look good for a reason, and even her sister and other family members noticed the great difference. The whole time I had been suspecting my wife, deep down I wanted to be wrong, but one night, after waiting for almost an hour for her to stop chatting and blushing on her phone and spend time with me, she said she was tired as usual and slept off. I was so hurt by her actions and neglect that I went through her phone to see who had been making her blush like that. When I accessed her phone and went through her social media accounts, I stumbled on her messages on WhatsApp with her sister's husband. She saved his name as Bestie with 3 love emojis, and I suspected he was the one. Before I opened their conversation, I could not believe what I saw. When I went through their conversation, not only was my wife having an affair with her BIL as I suspected, but they had also exchanged nudes. Even that evening, he had sent her pictures of his private part and wrote a long erotic text of all the nasty things he would do to her when they met again. They planned to meet in a cheap motel in 2 days, and they kept recounting their last escapade together. I was so disappointed and didn't know how to feel. To even think that they were making jokes about her getting pregnant for him and keeping the child, I felt so betrayed. At that moment, I felt like stuffing her with a pillow. I had to control my anger because she wasn't worth getting a life sentence for. Shortly after I was done with my emotional meltdown, I had an idea to teach her a lesson. So I took screenshots of their conversation, especially the parts where he sent her his nudes and they mentioned meeting at the motel to have fun. Then I cleared all traces that I went through her chats that night. I couldn't sleep at home because I was hurt and kept crying like a baby. Even though I suspected something was fishy, I still could not believe my wife would break me like that after all our promises to each other. The following day, I went to work from the motel I spent the night at, and she kept calling me the whole morning to find out why I wasn't at home when she woke up. I cooked up a lie for her, and I told her I'd be home after work. When I got home that evening, she could tell something was wrong, but I told her I had a bad day at work. Meanwhile, the following day, she had planned to meet with my BIL at the motel. She didn't know I had called her sister and explained everything. She was more shocked than I was and promised she would not confront her husband. Also, I created a WhatsApp group chat, added all her close family members to it, and told them everything I found out. I dropped the screenshots I took there so everyone could see, and they couldn't believe it. Her sister kept doubting that my wife would do such a thing to her. After everyone was out of their shock phase, we all planned to go to the location of the motel they would be using so we could catch them in the act. On D-Day, which was a Saturday, I watched as my wife dressed her best, did her makeup, and lied to me about going to see one of her old-time friends who had just given birth. I acted all calm and watched her as she left. About 10 minutes after she left, I drove to the location and notified her family that she was on the move. Eventually, we all rendezvoused at the motel as planned and decided to go to her room. There were 5 of us, excluding her father. When we got to her room, I knocked and pretended to be room service, and she opened the door with a white towel wrapped around her chest. The moment she saw that I was the one, she froze. Then we all entered the room one after the other. Her BIL was in the bathroom, and when he heard voices and came out to see us, he ran back into the bathroom and refused to come out. My sister-in-law was so heartbroken, and she attacked my wife right there. I told her to her face to not bother coming home and that she'd be hearing from my lawyer soon. Her mom and brothers could not even say anything to her. They all stood there in awe. I left the room and left them there so she could deal with her family immediately. I got home, I threw her stuff out of my house, and contacted a divorce lawyer to start processing our divorce papers. She tried to call me and beg a couple of times, and I told her she was insane to think I'd take back a shameless cheat like her. The worst was that she had no one to turn to. Her family disowned her, and her sister cut all ties with her because she couldn't handle the betrayal. I had to divorce her and officially get rid of her. Her sister also divorced her husband, and my wife had to move in with her friend before she left town. Later, I found out that their affair started under my roof, and they had it going long before I suspected something was happening. My wife claimed she continued the affair with her BIL because he was not as boring as me. I guess she will have enough fun living with disappointed family members for the rest of her life. I'm fine now, but I've decided to not marry again. It's better to be alone so I don't experience such disappointment and heartbreak again. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Cheated years ago and did everything to make amends, but it turns out my faithful partner was secretly cheating too. Let's start with a backstory. I met my wife in high school. We dated for 3 years but broke it off in the middle of senior year. We stayed broken up for a little over a year. During that year, I dated a little, fooled around a little, hooked up with a couple of girls, but mostly hung out with friends, nothing serious. We got back together, and everything was great. At 21, we had our first child and got married. My daughter changed my life. I went from nerdy video game slacker to highly ambitious IT professional overnight. I found a great job, got promoted quickly, and started to travel for work. At 24, we had our second child. Prior to kids, our sex life was pretty great, anywhere from 2 to 5 times a week, but after the second one, it was maybe once every other month, usually less. I met someone that worked at one of the locations I traveled to. Similar situation. Young, married, with kids, no sex. It started innocent, as it always does, but eventually we decided we loved our spouses but still needed sex. Rather than run the risk of getting emotionally involved, we would just have sex when I was in town. When I wasn't in town, we talk like friends, coworkers, and flirt lightly, but that's it. But a relationship like this allowed us both to open up to some sexual kinks we'd never shared with our spouses, and the kind of stuff I didn't get to do when I was single for a year. We did this for about a year and a half, which ended up being about 6 visits. We both decided that while it was nice to have kinky, no-string sex, we should really refocus our energy on trying to fix our sexless marriages. And I did. I completely put all my energy into rekindling the fire of passion in my marriage. It didn't really work, but everything outside of the bedroom is perfect, so I decided that I was okay with very little sex because she is an amazing woman, and I don't want to break up a great family just because I'm not getting sex. I also made a vow to stay faithful, which I did. Then, about 2 years ago, my wife found a video on the laptop of me and my secret sex buddy. I came clean about everything, admitted I was wrong, and vowed to prove that I'm worth trusting. She had some requirements that I accepted without question. I stopped hanging out with friends, stopped playing any and all video games, no longer chatted on MSN with friends, very limited time on the internet, switched jobs, helped out more around the house, gave her full access to my email, etc. Basically, I decided that I would cut out everything that could be a distraction from rebuilding trust. It's 2 years later, and I'm confused. I've been faithful for more than 3 years now and done everything asked of me and more. I've made such major changes in my life and who I am to prove that I can be trusted, but it's made very little difference. Still almost no sex, and she is very, very mistrusting still. She can have a Facebook, but I can't. She can go out with friends occasionally, but I can't. I can play a video game, but only if it has no online chat component. We did counseling for about 6 months, and the therapist did say she saw improvements and that I was making a serious effort to prove my trustworthiness and unlikely to cheat again. My wife didn't like sharing details of our life and felt it wasn't helping. Recently, a girl I knew in high school contacted me and made it very clear she'd be interested in a sexual relationship. I told her no, but it made me start to wonder how much punishment I should endure. I feel that I've tried as hard as I can, and I want it to get better, but I refuse to spend the next 70 years apologizing and walking around with my tail between my legs. But I also don't want to be a weekend-only dad. That would kill me. And I still very, very much love my wife. I just don't know what to do. Edit. Thanks to everyone commenting. I really do appreciate it, and I'm reading all of them. I also updated this a bit to mention we did try counseling. Comments where Opie has replied, "Commenter, whatever you do, don't mention the girl in high school. I know you have to be completely honest, but there's no way that would help. Not to judge too much, but your life sounds abysmal. I seriously hope there are incredible, fun things you do that you just didn't mention. If not, you need a serious change to avoid resenting your wife, your children, and the world in general. Given that you need to get some sex from your wife, I don't know how to help you with that, but I'm certain there are tons of relationship resources online, in books, etc., that can help you broach the subject carefully. Also, it sounds like a therapist could be of great help as an impartial arbiter who can explain to your wife without prejudice that the current situation is untenable. Opie, things are improving. I've been playing some more single-player video games, and I love spending time with my kids, which makes up for a lot of this. Part of this is that I'm so afraid of losing them or being a part-time dad or some stepdad taking my place. We did go to therapy for about 6 months, roughly a year ago. The therapist said it was very clear that I was committed to improving myself and our relationship and unlikely to cheat again. My wife felt it wasn't very helpful. Update 1. I cheated and got caught, admitted my mistakes, and worked very hard on myself and my marriage for 2 years while nearly on house arrest from the wife. However, it has not improved and I was getting discouraged. First, let me say thank you to everyone who commented. I read all of them, and they helped me more than I can ever say. Thank you, Reddit. What a difference a week makes. I came to Reddit to vent 5 days ago, and the life I had last week is nearly unrecognizable from the one I have today. Wall of text ahead. After reading all the comments last week, I decided I'm not a prisoner, and things had to change. I made plans to go out with friends I haven't seen in over a year on Friday night. On Thursday night, I sat down with my wife to try to reopen communication, let her know that I have needs and wants that aren't being met, and that if we are going to make this work, then some changes have to happen. She is my partner, not my warden. She took it pretty well and seemed to understand where I was coming from and recognize the huge amount of work I've put into myself and this relationship. Felt like a fairly major breakthrough. We even discussed picking a new therapist and giving that another try. But there was something nagging me the whole time. A Redditor said to me that he went through something similar but eventually found out his wife was also cheating, which explained the Alcatraz-style lockdown on his life. I don't know why, but I couldn't shake this thought. I know my wife wouldn't cheat, but she's also a reasonable person, so why the hell have I been on house arrest for 2 years? After a couple of days, the thought got the better of me, and I put a keylogger on our laptop. I did this Thursday afternoon. Friday comes, and I am excited to see my buddies. We talked a little before I left. She was apprehensive but understood this is necessary to rebuild lasting trust in our relationship. And like Reddit suggested, I hardly had anything to drink, answered texts and phone calls in a timely fashion, and got home 20 minutes before I said I would as a show of good faith. My wife is in bed already but sleepily asks how the night went, and I said it was great. Saturday morning we discuss it at length. She seems genuinely happy and understanding, and I am beaming ear to ear. Not only did I get to see my buddies, but it appears that I'm making headway in my relationship. Win-win. And while I'm on this euphoric high, I decide the trust isn't made with a keylogger. It was dumb to install it and will only create paranoia in me. I should also mention that while she has full access to my email, I have the same access to her email and Facebook, so really it seemed that a keylogger was overkill. I go to uninstall it. Of course, curiosity gets the best of me, and I check the very limited too. 5 days worth of logs. Nothing jumps out at me. Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, Gmail, etc. I get to the end of the log, and it's looking good until I see another trip to Gmail, this time for an account I have never seen before. I remain calm. I keep an old Hotmail account for spam/sign-up crap. I've advised her to do the same and only let friends know her real email. Either way, I log into the new account. No spam, no nothing. It's empty. Just a bunch of empty folders until I hit the tax information folder. Now this folder is full is in hundreds of emails. However, none of it is tax-related. All of it is to or from Steve. I have a 65-year-old step-uncle named Steve, but this is not him. I don't know who this Steve is. These emails are graphic, lots of what he likes to do to her and what she likes to do to him, lots of last weekend was amazing type stuff. So after reading maybe 30 of these, I decide I need to stop reading them. I made a new Gmail account and forwarded all of them to this account. Then I went back and deleted my tracks. I'm somewhat calm during all this. It sucks, but I cheated. So I am now experiencing what she did when she found out about me. While forwarding them, I pay closer attention to the dates. This affair has been going on for a very long time, all the way back to roughly a year before my son was born, or 5 years before I cheated. That hits me like a ton of bricks. What if my son isn't mine? What if my 1-year-old baby girl isn't mine? I lose it. I verify my tracks are covered and bolt out of the house, saying I'm going to the gym. I sit in my car for 2 hours crying at the thought they might not be mine, and how do I ever move forward? I have no idea how to confront her. I head home and find her best friend is there. They have decided they want to go to a movie. I'm still in shock, so I just nod. I need time to process anyways, so I put the kids to bed and try to figure out how I'm going to talk to her about this. I decide to check her secret Gmail again. She emailed him 4 hours earlier. She told him she'd have an hour after the movie to meet up. I check the time, the movie is down or close to it. I start calling her cell repeatedly, no answer. I call about 10 times, no answer. It's 1 a.m., and I'm sitting on the couch, and she walks in, surprised to see me up, asks if I'm feeling okay. I stood up right in front of her and said, I'm fine, and asked her, why didn't you pick up the phone? She says it was a movie, can't talk in a movie, and then she forgot to check it when she headed to the bar for one drink. She makes her way to the stairs, and I say, how is Steve doing? Her face goes white. Your Uncle Steve, she says. No, I say, the Steve you just got done talking to 20 minutes ago. How is he? She says nothing. I tell her I found the Gmail account. I saw her email planning to meet him after the movie tonight. With what little composure I had left, I asked, why didn't you come clean when you found out about me cheating? We could have fixed this together. She starts bawling and runs upstairs. I follow. What ensues is the worst 4 hours of my life. She comes clean that she met him back when she was working. He was a temp. I again asked, why not come clean 2 years ago so we could both work on this? She says she was too hurt by what I did and too ashamed to come clean. She said she told Steve she needed it to end and wanted to work on our marriage, and she says she did, but about 8 months later ended up hooking up again and it started all over. I asked why the prison rules. She says it's because she loves me and didn't want me to leave. I explained that while not right, I cheated because we didn't have sex, but obviously she was having sex elsewhere, so she didn't need it at home. So I asked why she cheated because I know prior to Steve we had sex 2 to 3 times a week, and she came 1 to 2 times each time. She says he was relentless in pursuing her, which made her feel sexy, and that the relationship was taboo, which added a thrill. Do you love him? To which she says, no, but I like the thrill and the taboo. I could go on and on. I asked a million questions. Eventually, I asked the big question, are the 2 youngest kids mine? She assures me they are. I ask, how can she be so sure? To which her response is she just knows. Despite what she says, she has no way, without a blood test, to assure me they are mine. I am crushed on so many levels. I stand up and head for the door. She stops me and begs me to forgive her and that we will work this out. I can impose harsh rules if I want and watch her every move, and she will do anything to fix this. I calmly tell her I have no interest in being a warden and that I need to go for a walk. I walk for an hour and come home and crash on the couch. Sunday was beyond awful. I said very little to her. I studied my 2 youngest, trying to find my traits in them. Every time I think I see something, I'd be struck by the fact that I don't know what Steve looks like. Perhaps he has big ears too, and that's where my son gets them. We talked briefly Sunday night. Despite wanting to ask more and understand more, my soul just wasn't in it. So we went to bed separately, and I laid awake to the sound of her crying upstairs. Felt good to get that out. I'm not sure what to do from here. Part of me thinks that neither of us will likely ever trust the other, but the other part thinks that she could have left 2 years ago to either be alone or be with Steve. She gave me another chance, and I'm a better person for having that chance. Wouldn't it be hypocritical of me to end this because of infidelity? Doesn't she deserve a chance to prove herself and improve herself like I have? I got home from work, and she had the kids at her parents' for a sleepover. She kept trying to get me to say what I thought or felt, and I kept pretty quiet. I told her I didn't know what I thought or felt yet. I know I need to talk to her, but all I feel like doing is laying on the couch with some beer and watching Futurama until I pass out. She did eventually get me to talk. I basically said that I don't know what to do, but I think at the very least we need some separation and therapy if we're going to attempt to fix this. She was unhappy about the separation part, but I put my foot down. I've lived trapped in my house for 2 years. Perhaps I'm not the person she loves, but instead loves the idea of us. She saw my point and said she did love me but understood that some time apart might help. Update 2. It's been a few months. I'd just like to say right away that you all helped so much. Wall of text as always. Well, it's 6 months after I found out my wife had been cheating, and a lot has changed. After finding out, the first thing I did was get the kids' DNA tested. Then I spent the next 2 weeks sleeping on the couch and having endless conversations with my wife. The more we talked, the more I felt like the world's biggest chump. I had poured my soul into fixing the relationship and was racked with guilt while she was out with some guy. But I also couldn't see myself just walking away. She'd been in my life since we were 15. We are 29, so I agreed to start therapy immediately and see how I felt after talking to someone else. To say the therapist was a bit shocked by our story is a bit of an understatement. This lady was pretty blunt in saying that nearly all of our problems stem from my wife's actions, and she needed counseling just for her in addition to the couple's sessions. While we were in therapy, I moved out and crashed with my best friend but demanded the house on the weekend so I could be with the kids. My other conditions were that she cut off all contact with Steve and that we talk openly about everything, any lies, even white lies, and I would be done. I also wanted full control of the bills/budget. She complied. I never divulged that it was a keylogger that helped me find out what was going on. She just assumed that she had stayed logged into her secret Gmail account, and I didn't correct her. Move on, but I figured that since I'd been lied to for 3+ years, I had the right to do a bit of spying. This puts us at roughly 4 weeks after I found out, and finally, the results from the kids' DNA tests come back. All mine. That was such a relief that I can't even describe it. It almost felt like I didn't care what happened with my wife anymore because I knew my kids were mine, and I'd always have them. And one thought stuck in my mind the whole time. I can accept that people make mistakes, but if she loved me, she had the chance to come clean about her mistake when she caught me. Instead, she put me on lockdown for years. Who does that to someone they love? I just couldn't stop thinking about that. Therapy was going well, but I was becoming jealous and angry, always upset I was away from home all week. And then on the weekend I'd tear apart the laptop trying to find out what she'd been doing in my absence. She was checking her secret email, and Steve was continuing to email her, but she never responded. That was the breaking point. She hadn't shut down the email I had asked, and while she wasn't responding, she was checking the emails almost like she was keeping her safety net around, so she could go back if things didn't work out, or maybe not. I don't know, but I didn't want to be angry and jealous all the time. I didn't want to be a warden. The next day, I confronted her and told her I couldn't forgive what she had done. I told her I could probably move past the cheating, but the way I was treated was terrible. I explained how I had pushed friends out of my life and shut myself off from the world to work on us, only to find out I was being kept prisoner so she could keep her boy toy. She broke down crying, saying she'd do anything to salvage the relationship, but it fell on deaf ears. That Monday, I contacted an attorney. Fast forward 4.5 months and I have my own place. Divorce is nearly final, and I'm finally starting to feel like me again. We are going for 50-50 custody. I've been reconnecting with friends and trying to find new hobbies for when I don't have the kids. I've been on 2 dates because a couple of friends wanted to double date, thinking it would help me. It was nice to meet new girls, but I'm just nowhere near ready to trust anyone. Part of me thinks I'll just put off dating until the kids are out of high school. The kids are sad that we aren't together, but we keep all of this away from them. No arguing in front of them and no bashing the other when they aren't around. But either way, I think I'm on the road to recovery, and feel free to ask anything because you guys helped more than I could ever say. Now on to the next story. Story 11. I reconnected with my high school crush after 25 years, and we are now officially dating. I am 42 years old. I graduated from high school in 1998. I had a thing for this guy over 25 years ago. Actually, it was more than just a thing. I was head over heels for him. He had the most beautiful blue eyes. He was one of the cool guys. He had his own apartment, a convertible, and a pager. He smelled like a combination of Polo Sport, wintergreen gum, and cigarettes. He listened to Dave Matthews Band. He worked at Foot Locker. The last time we spoke was in like 2007. I have no idea why he contacted me today. Like I said, I graduated from high school over 25 years ago. Maybe he has dated all of the women in our hometown and is now trying to reach out to those of us who have moved away. I have no idea why I'm posting this. I just needed to share this really weird information with people who might understand. It's just so freaking weird. I would have given anything for him to contact me out of the blue when I was in my 20s, but now in my 40s, the last thing I want to do is date. At least I don't want to date him. He has that special honor of being someone who I will always think is perfect because the person I believe him to be is the person I created in my head when I was 15. We'll see if I decide to go meet up with him. I'll let you all know if that happens or not. I just got off of a video call with him. Time has been much nicer to me. Update 1. Well, this has taken an interesting turn of events. Update on the call I got from my high school crush. I don't know how to link my previous post, but you can check my history. I got a call from my high school crush 2 months ago. I made a post that got a decent amount of traction. Obviously, I feel that you all need an update. I want to give you all a more complete picture of how massive of a crush this was before I began. I first saw him when I was in 7th grade and he was in 9th grade, that was 1994. After about an hour, I was head over heels. My first year of high school, I figured out where he would be and made a point to walk past him as often as possible. In 10th grade, we had 2 classes together. Somehow, we became friends. Probably because I was cute AF and he was a charming flirt. We sort of stayed in touch after he graduated, but I was more than happy to just leave him on that pedestal I had put him on in high school. After his message, I called him that evening. We talked for a little bit, then got off the phone. I asked him why he contacted me. He said he saw a post I made on Facebook and just thought about getting in touch. Okay, fine. I'll accept that. For a couple of weeks after that first phone call, 15-year-old me was absolutely in control. I felt like a teenager again. It was awesome. Here's where things get really interesting. After a few days of texting occasionally, it got to the point of us talking on the phone every day after I get home from work. By the way, I'm a teacher, so I talk to my high school crush every day after school. I find that hilarious. Then he told me he really looks forward to talking to me every day, so I started texting good morning every morning, and he started texting back. We text every morning while I'm getting ready for work, usually right up until my first class starts. This has been going on for weeks. We tried to get together a couple of times over the past 2 months, but with the holidays, we've both been really busy, which brings us to tomorrow. He's coming down to my house. I normally wouldn't invite a first date to my house, but I'm making an exception here. Mainly because I've still got quite a bit of baking to do before Christmas, and I really don't want to go out. We're going to order in a pizza and watch movies. I really want to thank all of you who commented on my previous post about how they had met up with someone from their youth when they were older and met their husband. I always figured that was just a trope in Hallmark movies. I honestly feel like I'm living in one of those right now. It's kind of awesome. Update 2. It's now Sunday. The high school crush came down to my house on Friday. He spent the night. I'm planning to make a longer post soon because I know you are all incredibly interested, but I'm visiting family for the holidays. You'll have to wait until Thursday for my update, but I can tell you it's all really good. Update 3. I'm now dating my high school crush, and he communicates. I still don't know how to link previous posts to new posts. Quick refresher. I got a message a few months ago from the guy I had the most massive crush on through junior and senior high, and maybe on into my 20s. We got together shortly before Christmas. We also spent New Year's Eve together. I haven't been with anybody other than Mr. Right Now for the past 7 years since my fiancé died. He has been single since a very messy breakup with his ex 5 years ago. We're both out of practice with this dating thing. We've also both spent a lot of time and energy on introspection in those years. I know that I'm in a very healthy place to start dating again. I believe he is as well. We had a couple of conversations about topics that we both would have probably lied about and hidden in the past from other partners. Instead of doing that, on Saturday, I addressed the topic that I knew was a concern of his directly with him. I was honest and open. The topic was addressed and we moved on. Then this afternoon, he did the same for me. I even said, "Look at us, healthy communication. We're so grown up. We're both in our 40s. We laughed about it, but then we both agreed that poor communication had been an issue in past relationships. There have been a couple of other instances where we have communicated really openly and honestly. OMG, it is so sexy. For those of you who are looking for the juicy, salacious details, I'm sorry, I really don't have anything for you yet. We're taking it slow. That doesn't mean I don't want to climb him like a tree. We've had a couple of good makeout sessions, a little under the covers action. It's funny. I feel like we're moving at teenager speeds and I'm okay with that. I have the intention of having him in my life for a long time. We'll have plenty of time. I'm still nuts about him. I've absolutely told him the extent of my crush. I even played the song that was his song when I was 15 years old. It was a very vulnerable moment. I still smile when he texts and calls like, when I just get off the phone with him. However, I've been actively trying to separate the actual person he is from the perfect man I created in my head when I was a teenager. It's kind of hard because he keeps getting everything right. I'm really, really happy. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.